Welcome to the 2025 Ivy League Football Preseason Media Day. We're delighted to have all of you with us here today. I'm Jack Ford, a former Yale player, and I have the great good fortune to be the game analyst on the ESPN coverage of the Ivy League football games during the course of our season. So again, we're delighted to have all of you here with us today. It should be an interesting and eventful day, as it always is. A couple quick notes before we get started. One is that as I mentioned, the ESPN coverage legal will once again have 6 games on the linear networks, ESPN. The remainder of the Ivy League games will all be available on ESPN Plus, and several others will be available and shown on certain regional sports networks. Some other notes that I think will be important to all of you. One is, by now, most of you, I suspect, are familiar with the fact that in December there was a historic announcement that the Ivy League this year will indeed be playing in the FCS championship tournament with a potential national championship at stake. So everybody's delighted that that will allow us to move forward and to once again illustrate the quality of Ivy League football. A couple other notes for you. Not surprisingly, given the quality of play that we've had here in the Ivy League, certainly most recently, there's several Ivies, including some of whom have been on today's call, who have been mentioned in preseason honors. We have 11 players from 5 different programs who earned preseason All-America recognition, and several players also on watch lists for national awards. We have 6 Ivies who were named to the 2026 East-West Shrine Bowl 1000, and that's the third most of any FCS conference. Once again, giving a very vivid illustration of the quality of football that's being played here in the Ivy League. Now, before we get started, and we'll be talking to each of the head coaches, 2 of the players from each of the programs, it's always my great pleasure when I have a chance to introduce Robin Harris, who is, as all of you know, has been involved and has been just a wonderful force for good in the Ivy League for 17 years now for us. Robin, among other things, has been on both the NCAA Constitution and the Transformation Committees, currently chairs the Board of Trustees of the Women's Sports Foundation, and as I mentioned, has been a great leader for us for 17 years. Robin, always a delight to see you.
Thank you, Jack. Always wonderful to see you, and you continue to be an amazing ambassador for Ivy League football. And to everyone joining us this morning, it's hard to believe we're already back together, gearing up for what promises to be one of the most exciting seasons in Ivy League history. There is so much anticipation leading into this season of Ivy League football, and I first want to recognize the reason why we are so excited for this season. And that, of course, is the fruits of the work of our Ivy League Student Athlete Advisory Committee and all that they did the past couple of years to champion the FCS playoffs proposal. It shouldn't come as a surprise that they were so dedicated and thoughtful, but they really were incredible to work with through every step of the process. And I want to once again acknowledge them and praise them for working through our systems and for getting us to this very exciting moment. This is a new chapter of Ivy League football, but we are still going to celebrate the traditions and the rivalries that make Ivy League football Ivy League football. The Ivy League title race remains at the heart of our season, and there are several recent examples of how much an Ivy League championship means to our campuses, alumni, and fans, and how the Ivy race brings our campus communities together in a way that showcases the very best of our sport throughout the entirety of our season. And now the opportunity to compete for an automatic qualifier and at-large bids to the FCS championship just adds a new layer to our storied tradition. We are ready for this season. We've already had a strong pipeline to the NFL. We've already had tremendous non-conference success with a winning percentage of over 700 since 2019. I'm going to say that again. A winning percentage of over 700 out of conference since 2019. And we have already had amazingly competitive Ivy League seasons. So, yes, we're ready. We're ready for this opportunity. We're ready to see our teams climb the national rankings. We're ready, and we fully believe that, like in many other sports, we will have multiple teams in the playoff conversation. And we're ready to continue showing just how strong Ivy League football is. So thank you for your time and attention and for focusing on Ivy League football. Jack, I'll let you take it from here.
Robin, thank you so much. And again, our thanks to you for everything you've done in your stewardship for it's hard to imagine. It's been 17 years now. So time goes by when you're having a good time, right? It goes by
I
quick.
agree. I
Robin,
agree.
thank you. Thank you again so much for it. I'll pass on a quick personal story that illustrates what Robin's talking about the quality of our games. So I happen to serve on the board of the National Football Foundation and College Football Hall of Fame with Greg Sankey, the SEC commissioner, who is obviously one of the most thoughtful and powerful voices in all of college sports. And he said to me last year, he said, I'm usually traveling on weekends, and every Friday night I make a point of watching the Ivy League game that ESPN is airing that time. And he said to me, it's great football, it's entertaining, and it's fun. So I thought that was a pretty good testimonial coming from a pretty impressive person about the quality of Ivy League football. So here's what we're going to be doing through the course of our session today. As we have done in the past, if you've joined us in the past, we are going to be meeting with and talking with each of the head coaches and two of their players who will be with them. We will ask the head coach to offer up a bit of a summary of thoughts for the season upcoming, and then we'll have some follow-up questions and then some conversations with the players that are with us, joining us also today. At the end of that, we'll have an opportunity for you media members to ask some questions. So the process will be use the raise hand function, and you'll be prompted to speak. I'll bring you into the conversation when we have that opportunity. Just also a reminder, the entire program is being recorded. It's also live streamed to the league's YouTube account. If you'd like a recording sent to you directly, what you can do is contact JJ Klein. He does such a wonderful job, the league's office football communications contact at jj@ivyleague.com, and he'll make sure to get you a copy, your own copy. So with that being said, we are going in. I don't want anybody to claim that I'm being biased here as a former Yale player, starting off with Yale head coach Tony Reno and some Yale players. We've just decided to go alphabetically backwards this time. So we're going to start off with Yale coach Tony Reno. He's also joined by Yale captain, All-Ivy running back Joshua Pitzenberger, and also All-Ivy and All-American defensive back Abu Kamara. So, gentlemen, welcome to all of you. We're so delighted that you spent a little time with us. It always gives us a sense that even though Cam hasn't opened yet for you guys, but it still gives us a sense that we're getting close to the Ivy League opener. So, Coach Reno, to you first, if we can. We're asking each of the coaches, and you've done this before, just give us a little summary of your thoughts for the upcoming season.
Jack, it's always great to see you. It's good to hear that you're recovering well.
Had another body part. So another new shoulder put in after a new knee last year. My 9-year-old grandson said to me, "So is your idea to keep from getting old that you're just going to replace all of your body parts?" And I said, medically, that could be an interesting approach. So we'll see how that works.
I mean, you just need to tell him that you're increasing your golf swing.
That's good. I had my surgeon. I said to him, I said, "Look, I'm a lawyer, so can you put in writing that this new surgery is going to guarantee me an extra 20 yards on my drive?" And not surprisingly, he was a little reluctant to do that. But Tony, as I've said to you before, I've still got one play left in me. I think I've got some eligibility. One play, and that would do it.
Well, you tell me when you're ready this season. We're gonna rip you out there.
All right, great.
Well,
so tell me your thoughts then going into this new season now.
Well, I'm really excited, for this team and what they've done, and obviously with our captain Joshua Pitzenberger and Abu Kamara, two guys who've been incredible leaders. From the end of last season to now. They've both been really guys that have really led this team all summer, and but and it brought this team to really where we are now, and I'm really excited of where where we're going to go from here. Um, I think when you look at your team, I think the growth always starts, at in the summer. We had a great number of guys here this summer, and they've grown in so many ways. We've had, our guys have done a great job in the weight room. We've got guys have done a great job in 7-on-7. I mean, we've had a great guys working together and growing in a lot of ways and growing together and competing. And I think that's one of the things that we really pride ourselves in is competing. And that when you look at your team and say, oh, if we can compete at a high level in the summer, you feel good about where we're going to be going from here. When you look at our team, offensively, our guys up front in the offensive line have had a lot of downs and have played really well for us over the last couple of years. And obviously, Josh has been an incredible player for us in a skill position. I think when you look at them, and our guys in the offensive line, we're going to be leading them. The offensive line is going to be leading us. And then defensively, I think it kind of goes the same way. It goes to the guy. We have a lot of guys that have played a lot of downs for us and have had a lot of success for us over the last couple of years. And they're going to lead us. And, whether it's guys up front or, guys like Abu and a lot of guys who've played a lot of plays for us defensively that are going to lead us. So very excited about where we are and in the growth that the guys have made. And just, like I'm sure like anyone here on these calls, like just excited to get this thing going. And as a guy, I always want to recognize, Mason Ship, who was a big part of this our opportunity to play in the playoffs. And he was a huge piece of the Ivy League growth to it. And I want to obviously a guy who is a big piece for the league and obviously for us to have that opportunity.
Let me follow up a couple of quick questions. Then I want to chat a little bit with both Josh and Abu. Let's start with the offensive side of the ball. This league has been known for quality quarterback play, certainly within the last 10, 15, even 20 years. Yale has been blessed with some great quarterback play. Most recently, Nolan Grooms, 2 times Ivy League Offensive Player of the Year. Last year, Grant Jordan coming literally from nowhere and having what I characterize on the air as just an exceptional season in his 1-year opportunity to start at quarterback at Yale. Coming into the season, big news during the course of the offseason is the fact that your son Dante is transferred into Yale from South Carolina. There are some other quarterbacks I know in talking with you in that room last year that you had some very high hopes for. How do you see the quarterback position? And I know you haven't started camp yet, and I know everybody's got to compete, but give us a sense of what you see as the strengths of that quarterback.
I think it's going to be very competitive. Obviously, we've had guys who've been in the system for a while, and then I think Dante brings a high level in that position as well. So really excited for the competition that's going to be in that room, and the guys that have allowed us to play at a really high level. And I think we're going to be able to really up the ability in that room, and really excited at that over the next whatever it is, few months. Excited to see where we go.
Running game, as we mentioned, led by Josh and that offensive line. Everybody's expecting an awful lot from that. But it lost some significant players at the wide receiver position. How do you see that then moving forward this season?
I think it's going to be very competitive. Obviously Mason Ship, Jackson Santiago, two guys who were, really good players for us. Mason was incredibly, very consistent for us. And I think that we have a couple of guys that, were backups last year, but I think have a real high level of competition in the room. We have some guys that were freshmen last year that didn't have as much playing time because of the guys like David Pantelis and Chase Nenad and in there from there, but have grown a lot over the last 5 or 6 months that we're really excited to see them grow.
Last quick question for you about the defensive side of the ball. And you talked about so many players coming back. And I know your defense has traditionally run a lot of guys onto the field. You have a lot of guys getting opportunities to get meaningful snaps in games. Looking back, and this is kind of a coaching approach question that I have for you. So looking back, last year there were a couple of tough, uncharacteristic defensive lapses that cost significantly. Dartmouth staged an impressive comeback. Columbia drove the length of the field for a touchdown to win. As a coach, do you utilize those? Do you talk about them? Do you lean on them at all, or is that kind of in the rearview mirror? That's done, and you move forward without having to reference back to that.
I think it's all part of the growth. It's like in any position, in offense, defensively, special teams. And when you look back at the season and you say, okay, how do we grow from these positions? And we're very part of our offense, defense, and special teams. We're very ready to go. We call it Yale versus Yale. And we have to grow, and I think a lot of what we've done in the spring is really focusing in on those things and get better in those areas.
All right, let me bring in both Josh and Abu into the conversation. Josh, I'm going to start with you. I mentioned in the introduction both an All-Ivy player and also the Yale football captain this year. And we've talked about this on the air all the time when we're covering the Yale or the Harvard. And we'll talk with the Harvard captain also. The fact that it's a different process. You're chosen by your teammates after the end of last year's season. And it carries with it not just a title, but some extraordinary responsibilities. You've been a leader on the field since your freshman year, your first year here. But how has being a captain changed how you have to prepare not just yourself, but your teammates every day?
Yeah, first of all, I'd just like to say thank you, Mr. Ford and Ivy League for having us on here. First of all, it's a huge honor that, at the time, a team of 120 guys, guys that I considered brothers, guys that, I respected to the utmost, elected me to represent the team. And then not even to consider the fact of, the legacy of this program and the lineage of the captaincy, and knowing that it's a big responsibility for me and I have some big shoes to fill. But, it just made me grow in a lot of different areas, performing on the field. It's always something that I was able to do, focusing on myself and getting better. But, it made me, having to widen the lens a lot more and, take accountability and consider everyone on the team. And, just think, outside of myself.
Abu, you had one of the great defensive seasons, not just for a Yale defender, but for an Ivy defender in recent history last year. So coming into this year, how do you look at what you want to do to get better? And if you look at what you did last year, it was a fantastic season. Some people might say, yeah, you don't have to get better. You can do that again. That'd be great. But coming into the season, what do you look at as to what you want to do to get better? And now, even though you're a junior, you are one of the leaders of that defensive unit. What has to be done to get that defense better also?
First of all, I want to thank the Ivy League and Mr. Ford for having me on. I think one of my goals, growing myself as a player and growing, the program, I think is bringing along the young guys, helping the young guys out like tremendously. I think that will not only help me grow as a leader, but help the defense and And when we look at leadership, we usually look at it top down. But if we can go top down and bottom up as a defense and as a program, I think we can take tremendous strides.
I mentioned Josh, multiple years all Ivy. Last year, also you. This year, coming into this year, on the Buck Buchanan watch list, which is for the top defensive player in FCS, which is obviously a significant honor for you doing that. Josh, back to you for a second, if I can. You've experienced Ivy championships. You've experienced the disappointment of a tough year last year. I mean, if you look at it, most coaches, most teams would say, "I'd love to have that kind of a record," but you kind of missed out on an Ivy title, and that's something that basically that Yale in the last 10 years or so has been always in contention for. All right. So, do you, as a leader, do you talk to the team about an Ivy championship? Is that something that you actually focus on, or is that something that's just sort of in the background of your work effort?
Yeah, I mean, as much as I love being a part of, Team 151, our standard is to, be an elite team and win championships. And we fell short of that. But, the identity of this team is it's a process-driven team where we focus and hone in on each moment of the process. We're not thinking of outcomes. We're thinking about the moment at hand. And right now we're focused on, preparing for camp. And then when camp comes, we're going to focus on, getting ready for the season. So, I mean, at the end of the day, if we can just win and dominate every single moment of the process, at the end of the day, someone's going to hand us a trophy.
Yeah. And Abu, from your perspective, you're an interesting player in the sense that you're all over the field. I am certain that I was a defensive back, and I understand the notion of somebody like you who has the talent to put him on the edge, put him inside, put him on a slot, drop him back. And from your perspective, then, I'm curious about what you see coming up in the league this year in terms of quarterbacks. I mentioned to Coach, look, this has been a quarterback-driven league, and we've had some great ones. There's a little bit of a turnover this year. So how do you see that? How do you characterize this league when you're talking generally in terms of the quarterback play that you'll be seeing on the field?
I think week in and week out, we play Ivy League. All eight teams have great quarterbacks. So week in, week out, we see tremendous talent, especially going into camp here. Like Coach Reno said, those guys in that quarterback room will be competing. So we'll see a bunch of talent here these next couple months within the Ivy League.
Let me bring in, get some questions from some media folks here. I think Rich Marazzi may well be, if I saw my screen correctly. I think Rich is with us, and Rich, you can unmute yourself and jump in with a question here if you would.
Hey, Jack, how are you?
I'm good. Always good to talk with you.
Good. Just want to know, did Yale lose any players to the portal system this year, or did you gain any players also?
Yeah, Tony?
Yeah, I think every year you look at your players, and there might be a guy or two that might make a decision to move on. We also had a couple guys that joined us, so obviously excited about the guys who joined us, and and we wish the guys well who made a decision to move on.
Tony, just a quick follow-up to that. Coaching changes every year, but we're in a different time now. In terms of we're coming out of the years of super seniors and the COVID extra years, but we've moved into the times of portals and changes and what's essentially free agency in college football. So as a coach, and generally speaking, as a coach, tell me how that's affected you and your preparation for leading a team.
I think one of the things that I'm most proud of is my players. And you hear it from Josh and Abu, and they speak of the brotherhood and how much they love playing together and how much they want to, Josh and Abu mentioned it as like, hey, it's about us and it's about our guys, and trying to play things at a high level, and chase elite, and and that's who we are. Like we're a culture driven team, and that has nothing to do with me. It has everything to do with like Abulu and Josh and all the guys in our team, who love playing together. And I think that's what makes us very different as a program.
I have another question coming up. Jim Fuller, Rich, thank you. Jim Fuller from the New Haven Register is with us. Jim, you can unmute yourself and jump in with your question. Jim, you go ahead. You're on. Jim Fuller. All right, I see Jim's hand raised. Let's one more shot here. Jim, I don't know if you're hearing me or not, but it looks like we've got you here. So you unmute yourself and jump in with question. Yes, we've lost Jim. It's one last question then for Coach, and then we'll move on here. We talked in the introduction about the idea of the Ivy League champion can now compete for the national championship. And you and I have had these conversations. I've had them with all of the Ivy coaches, athletic directors, and I know we talked about before Robin Harris and getting involved in this with us. And now we have that. Does that change at all? Because, up to now for Yale, it was Harvard-Yale. I mean, that's always been historically the last game, the pinnacle of the season. We've often said, and I don't think coaches agree with this, but people have often said on the air, it doesn't matter what you do in the regular season once you get to Harvard-Yale. Well, now there's a potential for another game, not only for Harvard-Yale, but for any other team in this league who could win this title. Do you coach any differently? Do you have to approach your coaching role any differently now that there is a potential for a national championship? Certainly the league champion will get that shot. I think that, there have been years when we could get a second at-large team in. So now there's a different endpoint, or a potential different endpoint. Does that change at all how you coach?
Not at all. Our focus is on day to day, week to week. When we focus on one game at a time. And really, one thing that our team does so well is that we are so focused on us. We really don't focus on opponents. We just focus on us, and we feel strongly that if we play ourselves on a week to week basis. And whether it was last year or this year, and we do it our way, it puts ourselves in the best position possible.
It does also certainly give us in the media something more to talk about in our conversation. But gentlemen, Coach Tony Reno, Josh Pitzenberger, Abu Kamara, thank you so much for spending some time with us. It's always a pleasure to chat with you, and we'll look forward to seeing you in the upcoming season, especially with our ESPN coverage of the Ivy League. So best of luck to all of you guys. Be well, stay safe, and we'll see you on the field. Take care.
Thanks, Jack.
Thank you.
And just a note for Yale, their first game this year is going to be Yale versus Holy Cross at the Yale Bowl, Saturday, September 20th at 12 p.m. So, gentlemen, thank you so much. Setting up now to have a conversation with the folks from Princeton. And I believe we have, or we will have in just a moment, head coach Bob Surace, also going to be joined by defensive back Nasir Hill, linebacker Marco Scarano. So I can see Coach Surace's backdrop here, which is one of the best backdrops that you will find. Coach is with us. Coach, how are you?
I'm great, thank you.
Good to see you as always. And let's just see. All right, we have, I think Nasir Hill is with us right now. And also we should have Marco Scarano with us any moment now. So good. All right. We have Nasir, we have Marco. Gentlemen, welcome to everybody. Glad you could join us here. Going to start off with a conversation with Coach Surace, and then Marco and Nasir are going to get to both of you with some of your thoughts about the upcoming season. So, Coach, as I said, it's always a pleasure to chat with you, to see you here. So let me start off with what we've been doing with all the head coaches, and that is ask you to give us a little summary of your thoughts for the upcoming season.
Yeah, and first off, thank you, Jack. It's always a pleasure, and what you mean for our league and, gratefully, generously spending your time with us. But yeah, this is unprecedented, right, Jack? It's, the automatic qualifier to the league champion. Maybe we get more than a team, but in the long history of the Ivy League, it's exciting times. This time of the year when we have media day, you're itching to get back. NFL started exhibition games, high schools are starting, other colleges start up. So I know our guys are raring to go after a terrific off season.
Let's talk a little bit about your what you're seeing now. Again, we haven't started camp yet, but you had spring. You guys have been working out in the summertime. So let's start with some of your thoughts about strengths and weaknesses for both sides of the ball, and we'll start with the offensive side. What do you see coming into this season as the strengths of the offense and things that you're going to have to get better development in?
Yeah, we got to take care of the ball. Like that's going to be really important. That way, the two things that uh, major focus on are going to be, that piece, and then our situational football. Like we have to do a great job with our situational football. I think we have a lot of guys through different situations, whether it was injury or other, but we have a lot of guys who've played a lot of football returning on both sides of the ball. It's an experienced group. It is a very talented group, and we're excited to see us, come together and execute. Defensively, there's not a position that doesn't have a guy who's, we got hit by a lot of injuries at different points last year. What that did was, there's not a position that doesn't have a guy who has starting experience with that. We're a very athletic defense. There's a lot of speed, especially in our back seven that way in terms of that. And, I think that, that'll be really exciting. And we got to replace our kicker. We have an all Ivy punter coming back and, long snapper, but, replacing our kicker on special teams will be important.
You and I have talked about this before in these gatherings, and I'll probably mention it to all of our coaches during the course of our session today. But this league has become known as a quarterback-driven league. We've had Princeton has had some great quarterbacks over the last decade or so more. The league has had great quarterback after that time period. So coming into this season, what are you looking for from your quarterback play?
Yeah, I think, and it's been there's been a lot of good quarterbacks in the league. We had a run of 5 out of 6, our previous 6 went to the NFL in some capacity, some for many years. And, we're looking, to see them execute the offense. The end of the day, playing quarterback for us is about their leadership, which we have a great group of leaders there. And then it's just executing the offense, executing the play to play. And each play involves decision making and reads and, throwing the ball accurately when it's a pass, making the right run read. But to me, a quarterback's got to be able to process the information presented to them quickly and accurately. And being able to do that 70 times a game is a challenge, and to do that successfully.
Let me come back to a second, and this question I'm probably going to ask each of the coaches here. But we mentioned the notion that this year, there is that opportunity to compete for a national championship. We're going to get at least one team in. There have been some seasons in the past where I think we would have more than one team in. There's some teams in the past. One of your teams, I think there was a Harvard team, there was a Yale team where I looked at it, and there was a Dartmouth team where I said these guys could make a deep run even to a championship. A national championship. I mean, we've been that strong, I think it's fair to say, over the years. But my question to you is, as a coach, does this change at all how you approach your team, how you approach the season, how you approach each game? The idea that there's the possibility of at least one more game after the regular season ends, which we have not had in the Ivy League before.
Yeah, and every other place before this I coached at, you could go to the playoffs, and in college it was almost year in, year out. When I was the head coach at Western Connecticut, we won the first playoff games in school history that way. When I was in the NFL, you had a chance to do it, and we did. at times. But we didn't change anything. It wasn't like when this was new. So I'm transparent. I hope I'm authentic with our guys. When it got passed, it was definitely something that I let them know about. And on next week at our first team meeting, I'm going to mention it and talk about it. And then you're going to go to, like, literally, we have a practice schedule for the next month. And other than the 8 hours of sleep, which is a block, they are in blocks of this is where they're going to be, whether it's lunch, training room, meeting room, practice, lifting, whatever they're doing. Their life is blocked out into these small chunks, and it's winning that block. It's executing and being successful in that block. And then when you have a plateau or struggle, it's challenging yourself to improve in that block. So if it's a lift, let's see how we can get stronger the next one.
All right, let me bring Nasir and Marco into the conversation. I should mention both of them are all Ivy players here. Both of them have been around for a long time. I know that for the years that I've been calling these games for ESPN in the last couple of years, it's oftentimes I am saying Nasir Hill and Marco Scarano's names during the course of the time when Princeton defense is on the field. So a couple questions for you guys. And Nasir, you first. And Marco, I'm going to ask you the same question. I think the headline for this season, as I just talked with Coach about, is now the Ivy champion can play for a national championship. And we've talked before about how, we've had strong teams coming out of this league, that could make a real serious run at that in the past. So this year, somebody's going to get a chance, at least one team, maybe more. So Nasir, you first, as a player. Now, you've played years now where that was not available for you. Has this changed? How do you think about this? How do you process this? And has it have an effect on you as a player? The idea that now there is a chance for you out there to play for a national championship this year?
I would say the mentality stays the same. Day in and day out, week in and week out. We're prepping just to get better each week, to attain the goal of just winning week to week. So the mentality stays the same, honestly. It's just about coming together as a team, working, gelling, and just getting to the next game so that we can just continuously win and learn.
Marco, how about you? The idea of, the every other conference, had a shot at it except for the Ivy League, and the Ivy League by all measures, the amount of guys we put into the NFL, the Robin Harris mentioned the 700 winning percentage against, other conference teams that we play. Every one of these metrics pointed to this is a really strong league, and it has some really impressive teams coming out of it. And now might have a chance, as I said, to make a run at a national championship. So, Marco, your thoughts on that?
Yeah, definitely. First, I want to say thank you, Mr. Ford, and the rest of the Ivy League for having us. But I think it's super exciting. But like Nasir said, I think it doesn't really change much for us on a day-to-day basis. We focus on the process and what we need to do week in and week out for the opponent that we're playing. Some people talk about how it changes your recovery and stuff like that. You need to go an extra game or something like that. But Coach Trace always pushes us to embark on recovering in a process that's throughout the entire season. So we're talking about sleep. Sleep is a block for us. So from that standpoint, we've always been maximizing our recovery and how we treat our bodies. So I think nothing really changes from that point of view.
It's certainly something that we in the media will have a chance to talk a lot about while you guys are doing your practicing and making your better. Nasir, how about the defense this season? Give me your thoughts on how you would characterize as Princeton's defense, their strengths, and the things that you need to work hard to get a little bit better at.
I would characterize our defense as exciting, fast, physical, a threat. I would say we've been playing together for quite a while now, these past couple of years, and a lot of guys have experience. So I would say it's going to be something exciting to watch. We gel really well, really fast together. We communicate very well. We uplift each other well. Everything is a next play mentality. We're not dwelling on the past, and we don't flinch. That's our motto, to not flinch. So with that's our main goal. And then from what we need to work on, that standpoint is just understanding the game better as a whole. It's always something to get better at. It's always something to learn. So it's just always just coming together, making sure that we understand the game a little bit better so that we can correct our own wrongs.
Marco, I'm going to ask you this. I'm going to ask you to analyze your offense for me. right? You see these guys every day when you square up, doing 7-on-7, you're doing full team drills, whatever you're doing. Yeah, you see them, and nobody knows teammates and strengths and weaknesses better than players on that team. So give me a candid assessment of what you see the strengths will be this year of Princeton's offense.
Yeah. I'd say the one word I'd use to describe our offense would be potential. Like we see in practice all the time, Nasir and I, we know the guys that we go against that have the potential that haven't really got the shot yet because they were either backups last year, they haven't been on the field much. But I'm really confident in our guys that are going to be stepping up this year on the offensive side of the ball. I think obviously we have a great group of quarterbacks and running backs coming back. And then the receivers that are replacing the guys that we've had leave last year. I think they're versatile, they're very fast. They play the game right, and I think our offensive line is gritty. They're young guys, and we have some experienced captains or leaders in the room on that side of the ball. But I think they're gritty. They got a ton of strength in the weight room. We see them in the weight room all the time. They push a ton of weight, and it's super exciting. And I think from that point of things, we have a ton of potential, like I said.
This year, let me come back to you something that Coach Charay said, and that's the basically the number of bodies that got snaps on the defense last year, and the people that are coming back this year. I'm sure there's some who are not as well versed in the football world that might say, well, if you have too many guys out there, too many snaps, that you don't have just a solid 11. What's the value to you as a defender of having players, a number of players, not just a starting 11, but a number of players who can rotate in and out? How does that help a defense?
It makes us very versatile and very unpredictable. You get a new skill set, every 3 downs, every 2 downs, a new series, and it's no drop off. Honestly, everybody knows what they're doing. They know their job, and they know that they need to go make a play or they need to do their job so the rest of the team can make a play. Like I really said, it's really just no drop off, and it helps us in the fact that you never know what you're getting. You may get a new set of down D linemen, you may get a new set of backers, you may get 6 DBs on the field, 5 DBs on the field. So, and then we rotate too and play different positions. So it's just us being versatile and there's having no drop off.
Let me bring in some of our media folks here. I have some questions. Dylan Manfrey, I think, is with us and has a question here. Dylan, can you pop in with, unmute yourself, what you have done, and pop in with a question. Welcome.
Hey everybody, how's everybody doing today?
Good. Glad to have you with us.
Wow.
Good, love to hear it. Thanks for taking the time, guys. Best of luck this season. My name is Dylan Manfred with the Trentonian. Question for Coach Charay. I'm curious what you would say is the biggest misconception of your team going forward. And coming off last year when you guys went 3-7, maybe your record didn't really reflect your play. So I'm curious, heading into this season, what do you think are the biggest misconceptions of your team?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't really listen to that outside world. I really don't care what the misconceptions are. They don't mean a rat's butt to anything. What somebody else says, because people are entitled.
Is that a technical coaching term? A rat's butt?
Yeah, I'm trying to keep it PG, but the end of the day, they have their opinions and they're allowed to have them, and that's what makes sports great. That you can have the opinions, but I try to keep the focus on what we're doing now. What is today going to be like? What is practice 1 or meeting 1, or literally when the freshmen get here on next Wednesday and we get those guys together who've never really been on college campus in this setting, how do we bring those guys together? And then when we finish practice, what do we need to grow from? What do we need to adjust? What do we need to work on? But it's literally, you're breaking into these moments. And look, everybody's going to say, pat you on your back when you do something well and maybe criticize, deservedly so, when you don't. But that can't be the world where we're making our decisions. The decisions have to be on what we see, what we collaborate with. And I think that's what makes sports fun, that, media is going to have their, and alumni and fans and community, they're going to have their opinions and takes. And it's what makes sports different, right? What makes it almost like sports and politics, Jack, in the worlds you're in, it makes it different than, nobody really is doing that at a commercial real estate place, in terms of that. Nobody's really spending a lot of time in the physics office. But in football or sports or politics, it creates these emotional outlets for people on the outside where we get to be in the arena and just enjoy that competition.
Last follow-up question, and Coach, I'll come to you on that. So it's sort of a big picture question.
Yeah.
You know, we talk often about how our game has changed. Now, college football is on the field; it's the same, but all of that swirling around it, and we know about the portal, and we know about NIL, and we know about conference realignments. And I'm curious from your perspective as a former Princeton player, Princeton coach, your perspective on how all of this has or hasn't impacted the Ivy League itself in Princeton in particular.
Yeah, I think it's great. I think it's great kids have options. Like, I mean, I was down in Spring Lake over the weekend with a bunch of alumni, and
We
we get
let you into
together.
our town? I don't know. I've been in this
Yeah.
town for 35 years, and I thought there was an ordinance that says you can't wear orange and black in
I'm in
this town.
disguise. I
All
go in
right.
blue, so you let me in.
Okay, all right. I got some nice Yale gear I can give you while you're here on the beach and make you feel comfortable.
Yeah, but I you know, we have a locker room. Like these guys are friends. You know, Marco was the chair of our, you know, the crew chief of my 35th reunion, which shows you how old I am. And he sees this group of friends that have been together for about 40 years, you know, since we got there as freshmen. That's not going to happen at certain places, and kids have to make the choices and they have their decisions on what they want. But what we have is unique, and we have development. Like if I don't develop Nasir and Taj Owens and the other safeties, I'm not going to the portal, right? I burnt the boats that we are about the guys on our team and we are about developing them. We've had one transfer in 40 years, right? We're not, our players aren't looking over their shoulder about being replaced because they didn't have instant success. Now, if we don't do our jobs and develop them, then we're, you know, SOL. Like it's a damned if you do, damned if you don't. But I think that what the Ivy League or what Princeton, I don't want to speak for others, what we have is unique. I think it's awesome. Our guys are going to have, you know, an alum talked to me about terminal value, but the growth over time, which is like an economics term, that the growth that our players will experience, and the two guys that are, you know, on the screen right now, those guys are going to have incredible success in life. You know, they actually interned together this summer, which is really cool, at a top place in the world. And they dominated their internship. So when football ends, when graduation happens, and maybe they play after this, but when football ends, they are going to have success for years and years and years. That's different than across the country. And it's a shame because there's not a coach you'll talk to that went into coaching in college, at least, to not make a difference. And I go to work every day hoping if I do a decent job, I've made at least a small impact.
Well, I certainly echo what you say. We say this almost every game on the air. Eric Freed, who is our wonderful play-by-play guy in the Ivy broadcast, and he and I talk about that fact that you said that there's something very unique to the Ivy League, and you have that combination of exceptional football and exceptional young men who are going to go on to have exceptional careers, and I think that's
People don't
something
realize.
we try to applaud every time we're on the air.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, Jack, people don't realize how good the talent is. I get to see it, you get to see it, that how good the talent is. But the difference is these guys I get to coach and are in our league are incredible human beings that are smart, and they're going to go on to be, but they're exceptional athletes. Like I'm just since Thursday, I watched 4 of our guys play NFL games. You know, they were on TV, and I'm not the only coach in this league that can say they saw their guys this weekend. That is pretty cool. Like we got some really talented football players. They are great people.
You will know this, but my coach at Yale, legendary Carm Koza, Hall of Fame coach, and Bob, you knew him.
Yep.
And Carm used to say, I will take my guys and put up what they do with their lives after they finish playing football in the Ivy League, and I'll compare them to any other school, any other department, and you know what? Will be successful. And I think that's, as you said, that's one of the great things that you get to see with your Princeton players year in, year out. And Marco and this year, I'm sure, are no exception to that. So, gentlemen, thanks for spending some time talking with us. We're going to look forward to seeing you on the field. I should note that Princeton opens up this year against San Diego, Saturday, September 20th at 12 p.m. And Coach, gentlemen, we'll be looking forward to seeing you on the field. You all stay safe. Have a great season.
Thanks,
Thank
See
you.
you, Columbia.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
All
Thank you.
right, take care. Next, we're going to get set up with the folks from the University of Pennsylvania. So as we set that up now, we'll be joined by head coach Ray Priore, also be joined by defensive lineman Paul Jennings, quarterback Liam O'Brien. Talk a little bit about the prospects for University of Pennsylvania moving on into this next season. So once again, reminder for the media folks out there, use your raise hand function and we'll get you in for the conversation. We're going to start off with conversations with Coach Priore first, and then we'll bring in a couple of the players, and then we hope the media folks will have some questions that they can join us with also. So looks like we have everybody joining on. Paul's with us, Liam's with us. Coach Priore, welcome. Always good to see you.
Great to see you, Jack. How are you doing?
Doing real well, thank you. Love that backdrop. That's a spectacular sight back there. All right, let's start off with what we've been doing with each of the coaches, and that is, Coach, to have you give us a kind of a state of the program chat, a little summary of your thoughts looking forward to this new season.
Absolutely, Jack. I appreciate you hosting this and the league for putting on the media day as usual. At Penn, our journey started back right after the season. I think we came off of a season that I think for the players on the board here and in the program, we're not satisfied, and we had to reach deep down and start that process back before the new year 9 months ago. And I really believe and watched our kids progress through winter program, spring ball, the leadership program that we developed through with both Liam and Paul and the rest of our leadership council, and just sort of develop that continuity, that brotherhood through the spring. So I'm always optimistic, but really excited about the group of guys that are returning. It was a spring where we had not done in the past, which was we made it very, very competitive there. It was physical in nature. Okay, so we got after a little bit, and then our kids have worked hard over the summertime coming in, and like everybody, we have different strengths that we can obviously attack onto. Some weaknesses you always have to hide. Hopefully some treasure with some younger players coming on in. They're going to step up and take that next step. Development is such a key part of what we do at Penn and obviously in our league, of taking players, develop them over time with strength and conditioning, the football, the X's, those, and just the maturity process of being the next step into that life. But like the progression, kids are very hungry and excited to get back.
Looking at last year coming into this year, and you said it's kind of spurred from the day after the season ended, it spurred your efforts here. You said you went hard during the spring session, and then we'll start off camp next week, and I'm sure you'll continue with that. But just sort of looking forward, because I don't know any successful head football coach, and you were certainly in that category, who's ever satisfied. I don't care if it's an undefeated season or if it's a season where, you have some twists and turns and it doesn't play out the way you wanted it to. So looking at last season, moving into this season, what do you think you need to improve on from last year to get back to where Penn is used to being this season?
Sure. I think it all starts with, again, we've spoken this as a staff and to the guys on the call here, it starts about the ball. We got to possess it, we got to keep it, and we got to get it. Okay. And if you look at our plus minus, we're at just about 1. Okay. And then this league is all about points. Okay. It's about points. How do you take, an offense? It's, the goal is not 3, the goal is 7. Okay. And then on defense, the goal is keeping them to 3 when not on the points. And we've lost too many games by a very, very small margin, Jack. And I think, truly believe that comes down to a lot of different things. And the word I've used often this past 9 months has been the discipline. Okay. The discipline that you have, the focus, guys, just doing your job and executing. And I think that's just a way for us to move the inches. Okay. There. This league is as competitive as it's ever been, from top to bottom, week in and week out. It is a dogfight. You better be able to play for 4 quarters and play hard. Stay healthy. Again, that's something that you can't prepare for, but you can prepare is your depth. Okay. And then your approach, and really do that early forecasting. If this doesn't happen, how do you move here? So there's a lot of prep work that's gone into it. And again, for our sake, is really that next man up mentality with that in terms of our coaches being great leaders, and again following the leadership of both Liam, Paul, and and the rest of our captains and everybody else.
You mentioned the notion of depth, and coaches will always say, well, it's more than just depth, it's quality depth that can step up. And I think we've seen that in the Ivy League. Certainly in the last decade or two, we've seen it at Penn. How do you then achieve? Because we're a different league. We approach things differently. All right. In a world of portal movement and NIL, as a head coach, then how are you able to achieve that quality depth that allows you, for instance, I'll get to Liam in a minute, but allows you to have Liam step in for a quarterback who sets so many of the Penn records, and he goes on to have a great burst of play there, including being a National Player of the Week one week. So how do you go about then building that quality depth?
Sure. Well, I think the quality comes from the physical development, obviously the off the field and the weight room and that stuff. But we do some things pretty interesting at Penn where we actually are developing our young players. We have basically, and Jack, you were back when we used to have the JV program and those things. Well, we don't have that anymore, but we do have a segment of practice that we dedicate 1 or 2 days a week to the young development of our players. You can't get better unless you play the game. Okay. And again, you're not going to catch, throw, tackle, okay, those type of things unless you're playing it. So our ability to develop while the season is going on, definitely during preseason, but as we're going on, dedicating some time for those young players to simply be a part of the offense in there. Then a huge part of it carries off to spring ball, right? To what the kids are able to get accomplished in spring ball, and sort of set the stage and get them with quality football reps on the football field. There's so many ways you can learn the game today than it was different than before. We have all these different applications where kids can study playbooks 24/7, voiceovers, and so they're hopefully constantly learning about the game, learning about themselves, and increasingly getting better.
Yeah. Let me bring Paul and Liam into the conversation on this. And Liam, I'm going to start with you, all right? Because I mentioned this before. It's what Coach is talking about, next man up, right? Quality depth. And all of a sudden, Aiden Sand, who has set many of the Penn passing records and was the leader of that team for a couple of years, goes down with an injury, and now it's your team. All right. Talk about and you go on, as I said, you went to have a great couple of games, a National Player of the Year, responsible for 7 touchdowns in one game, 6 passing and 1 rushing. Stepping into that role, talk about that development that Coach has mentioned that allowed you to be able to be the next man up.
Yeah, we do a really good job. We get a lot of reps as young guys, and that really built my foundation. Every day since I stepped on campus my freshman year, I was throwing to Jared Richardson, BC Owens, playing with the guys up front. So, when I came in, it was, we've had the reps before, we've done this, and now let's just go show. The biggest thing is everyone in our locker room just keeps a head down mentality and just work. Our mindset is just dominate every day, dominate every moment, and whether you're a backup, whether you're a third string, whether you get scout team reps, whatever it is, it's dominate and it's just compete. And we really installed that this spring. We had more competition, more challenges than we probably have had in the past, and it was great. Just building that energy, building that fire, building that desire to win. That's kind of what's driving us.
Let me ask you, Liam, to give us a scouting report on your offense. All right. So if you were going to say, here's our strengths coming into our season, here's some things we got to get better at, what would you say?
Where do you start, right? You got 5 returners up front. It's exciting, right? All those guys have played with each other. They've got experience, and that's your foundation. Those guys really provide all the potential for our offense, and so they're going to take us where we need to be. And then on top of that, you just got athletes, right? You got guys that with the ball in their hand is dangerous, and guys that will go make a play to get that ball. And pretty much everyone on our offense has had live snaps, so everyone's going to be comfortable coming in. And on top of that, we have another year with Coach Kamara, and I love what he's doing. I love the scheme, and I think he's going to set us in great positions to be successful.
And if you were asked, okay, here's the single most important thing we got to get better at as an offense, what would the answer to that be?
It's just communication. It's we're adjusting to the headset, which is very exciting, but it's going to take, some time to just get used to. See what the communication on his end and into my ear is. See what it's like when it cuts off at 15 seconds. And on top of that, it's everyone else still has to get the play. We have to communicate. We all have to be on the same page. And we just can't give up the 5-yard penalties. No false starts, no jumping off sides. Keep it simple and just be smart, communicate.
Well, let me bring you into the same conversation, if I could, in terms of your defense. All right. And you give us a scouting report on your defense. What are the strengths? What are the things you got to work on?
Yeah, I think what's first of all most important to mention is just how hungry this group is. You've seen throughout the years, how close we've been. And, to be honest, this is not a group that's interested in being close. This is a group that, wants to make it all the way there, wants to dominate week after week. And I think that's going to reflect in our defensive play this year. Our defensive motto is, simply hustle, hard work, and physicality. And you're going to see 11 guys running the ball every play. You're going to see, a lot of great young guys that are looking to prove something, and a lot of great guys that are returning, looking to make a name for themselves as well. So, I think top to bottom, it's a good mix of young guys that don't have a ton of experience, but have had some great players in front of them the last few years and are ready to prove something to themselves and the rest of the league. And a good mix of guys that have experience and can kind of lead the charge in a sense of, calling out plays with John Lista being a great guy to feature there with. A lot of experience as a Mike linebacker and kind of directing the show and obviously being a super high energy guy that's, the epitome of running around and making plays.
And same question that I gave to Liam from the defense perspective. If you had to say, what's the one thing that we need to get better at this season to be better than we were last year? What's the answer?
It's communication. I think, that's what we harp on day after day. And, a defense is not functional if it's 10 guys on the same page, 9 guys on the same page. To stop these high-powered offenses in this league, and you see, a ton of talent top to bottom, like Coach was discussing. You need to have 11 guys knowing the call, communicating with each other, and like I said, the hustle piece of it can't be excluded as well. But making sure we're all together, we're all unified in the same front, and ready to stuff whatever comes at us.
Let me bring a couple of media folks have some questions here for us. I think Tyler Ringhofer was the first, I believe. Tyler, you can unmute yourself and jump in if you would. Welcome.
Got it. Thank you so much, Jack. This is Tyler Ringhofer from the Daily Pennsylvanian. Hi, Coach. Hi, players. Thank you all for taking the time. Coach, after Aiden Sayen's injury last season, what are you most proud of in terms of Liam's development at quarterback? And I was wondering if there was any particular moment, play, or game that made you say, Liam, that's our guy.
Yeah, well, I appreciate it, Tyler, for jumping on and your call. Yeah, I mean, you never know when you're going to be called off the bench, right? You come there, you have no idea your number is going to be called, and Liam just did that. You watch them coming into the Brown game, coming right out off the Yale game up at Brown, and went up there on the road. I mean, his first 2 starts were on the road, so you turn around and see a person who's playing on enemy territory had lost to Yale, whatever, and just any one play. I just think you just watch the young man when he's behind there and the poise and the confidence that he has in himself, but he has in the guys around him. A pure leader, and that doesn't mean you have to have the best arm, the best feet, the best legs. It's a combination of all the different pieces. And I've been around here for a couple of years. I've seen some really talented quarterbacks play, and it's more than just delivering the football. Okay, it is there. It's a sense of confidence when you're on the sidelines and you're talking, and again, Liam speaks people here. So his leadership on a day-to-day basis in those games has been tremendous, and I fully expect that to continue this year.
I can echo that, having been there when Liam got on the field after being even commenting on the fact that he just stepped in and it was like it was truly the next man up. His team moved forward with it. Connor Smith is with us and has a question also. Connor, jump in. Welcome.
Hey guys, can you hear me?
We got
Yep.
you.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you for having me, and thank you guys for being here. Quick question for Ray. Obviously, with the departures of both Malachi and then Jamal being a little bit later in the offseason, there is kind of a question mark around the rushing attack this season. I was wondering if you can kind of just give us some insight on the running back situation and if any of guys have like stepped up in the offseason, if we should be expecting a committee-based attack or if like there has been like a standout so far.
Sure. That's a great question. And when you lose Ivy League Offensive Player of the Year to the portal and the NIL and all those other things that happen, that's never good. But again, it's got to be a next man up sort of mentality to that. We've done some internal things. Okay, I'm going to make some moves internally. Going to take Julian Stokes and play him back there in the backfield a little bit, which would be great. Dante West, real good. My man. Pup Williams from Maryland had a real good spring, and we're bringing in two real exciting freshmen. Fortunately, as you've been around and you watched people play, that's probably the one position where early players and can play and can tap in really earlier there. Malachi is as a freshman came in and started after his third game, but I do believe the upperclassmen will be able to lead us our way through it, and then obviously again we'll find the best system to put us into in there, and you never want to see people lose, but you're missing them. But we're excited about the guys that are coming in here in a week.
Gentlemen, again, we want to thank you. A note, so Penn opens up at Stonehill on Saturday, September 20th at 1 p.m. So Coach Priore, Paul, Liam, thank you so much all for joining us. It's always fun when we get a chance to cover Penn games, and I am sure that it's going to continue again this year. So good luck to all of you players. Stay safe, stay healthy. Coach, good luck to you, and we'll look forward to seeing you on the field soon.
Thank you, Jack.
Thank you. Thanks.
Take care, guys. All right. As we continue to move along here, we're going to be joined by the folks from Harvard in a minute as we get settled in. Head coach Andrew Orrick, safety Ty Bartram, quarterback Jaden Craig. Those names, two All-Ivy, well-known, nationally recognized players. Be with us in just a few moments. Coach Andrew Orrick, one of just a handful of Ivy League coaches in the history of the league to have won or shared a title in their first year. And that's a very impressive group that he gets a chance to join. So, all right, we got everybody with us now. Ty, Jaden, Coach Orrick, welcome to all of you. Thanks for joining us.
Jack, thanks for having us.
Great
to see you.
Good. Coach, let me start with you. And again, what we've been doing here is asking each of our head coaches to give us a sort of the state of the program as we move into the 2025 season. Your expectations, your thoughts about this coming season.
Yeah, I think I can speak for everybody here that we're really excited to get started with preseason camp. Excited to have these two guys here who I think are great representatives of Harvard and the football program. And Ty Bartram and Jaden Craig. Ty's our 151st captain here at Harvard, a two-time All-Ivy player, and finals for the Bushnell Cup last year. Economics major, and Jaden returning as starting quarterback was All-Ivy last year. Was finalist for the Walter Payton Award, another economics major. These guys are on a number of preseason watch lists. Preseason All-American teams, and that's just a tribute to the work that they put in up to this point of their careers. So I'm really excited for you to get to talk with them. We believe we have the talent to compete with anybody on our schedule this year. But there's a number of positions where we graduated some guys. So, throughout training camp, we're going to have some competitions where roles will be defined, and that's what preseason camp is really for. But the reality is, the entire team is putting the work to this offseason starting in February to put themselves in this position to have the opportunity to compete for an Ivy League championship. So we're just all really excited to get started.
I'm glad you mentioned what we say regularly on the air, which is that the hallmark of this league is you've got some great football players and they're all great young men, and they're going to go on to do wonderful things with their lives afterwards, whether it has something to do with the game of football or not. And we've seen that through the history, and you know that about your Harvard players. So it's always a wonderful opportunity to spend a little time with them. I'll get to you guys in 1 second. Coach, one or two other quick ones before I talk with the players. Looking at, let's start the offensive side of the ball this year. So coming into the season, what do you see as the strengths of the offense and things that you might want to improve upon from last season?
Yeah, I mean, I think it starts with Jaden at quarterback, returning him at quarterback, who is, I think, the best returning player in the Ivy League on offense, is obviously a huge strength. We returned technically 3 starters on the offensive line, but we had a 4th in Thomas O'Brien, who was playing 40+ snaps a game, at guard and tackle. So we're returning quite a few guys on the offensive line. I would say that, things we need to improve on. I don't know if it's improvement and more as we just have to define, who's going to be getting all the touches, because we did graduate some really special players last year. There's talent there. There's been talent here. Coach Murphy did a great job recruiting. So it's more about defining those roles during preseason camp, because that's really what it's about. Who deserves to have the ball in their hand on offense.
How about the defensive side of the ball? What are your thoughts?
I think it starts with our secondary is our strength, returning a lot of snaps there, a lot of really good players. Starts with Ty returning, and defensive line. Alex DeGreek is a returning starter who has been very productive in his career. That's another position where there's a lot of guys competing for roles, and that's where training camp is going to come into play, and linebacker as well. So the back end. The nice thing about the back end is those guys are really involved with the run game quite a bit. So even though you are figuring out who's going to be playing a lot of snaps, on the first and second level, with how much involved the DBs are with the run game, you feel good about where we're at with that.
Let me bring the guys into the conversation if we can. And Ty, I'm going to start with you. I mentioned preseason All-American, preseason, both you and Jaden, preseason watches for defensive, offensive player of the year. I mean, that's pretty impressive to have 2 players from one team on that. But I want to start with something else for you, Ty, and that is the fact that you were selected by your teammates as the captain of this team. And Coach mentioned it. We talk about it on the air oftentimes when we're talking about Harvard and Yale, that it's a different process in terms of choosing a captain. What has that meant to you in terms of your day-to-day role as a Harvard football player to have been chosen as the captain of this team?
Yes, sir. I mean, first of all, it was a great blessing, be voted by your teammates, fellow peers, guys you go to work with every day. Try not to change as much, because I got that role because I was the person I am, the player I am. But obviously it comes with certain things, just communication-wise, making sure everyone's locked in, and also just leaning on your teammates, in terms of there's never one captain on a team. There might be one C on a jersey, but we got a bunch of leaders on this team, so that helps as well.
Let me ask you about this, and I'm going to ask Jaden about it also. Maybe come back to Coach about it. We mentioned at the very beginning of this media day that this is the first season that the Ivy champion is going to have an opportunity to play for a national championship. And we talked about on the air regularly about, for whatever reason, it wasn't an opportunity. Now it is. Has that impacted at all your preparation, your team's preparation so far? The notion that now you're playing not just for an Ivy League championship, but the chance to go, and I've mentioned this on the air a couple of times. I've seen some Harvard teams, I've seen some Princeton teams, Yale teams, Dartmouth teams that could have made a serious run into this championship. Maybe got to the very end of it. And now we get a chance. Has that changed at all or impacted you at all in terms of how you're preparing?
I think in terms of the league, it's a blessing for the league, but for us as a team, I don't think it changes anything. We're just worried about going 1-0 every week, ending with a championship, a real outright championship. And then as long as we do that, the rest will take care of itself.
Yeah. Jay, let me get to you if I can. Another Jersey guy. We always love to have our Jersey guys represented here. I want to ask you about your offense. Okay, so coming into this again, you've been a quarterback here for 2 seasons now, coming into your 3rd season. As I mentioned, watch for the Walter Payton Player of the Year award, Ivy League. All the Ivy League honors, certainly. So it puts a lot of responsibility. And you're the quarterback of the Harvard football team. And we know, you go back 20, 25 years, there have been some fantastic football players who can say, I was the quarterback of the Harvard football team. So looking at that, I want to ask you about expectations, because expectations are wonderful, but they can be debilitating sometimes. So you've got team expectations, you have personal expectations. How do you incorporate all of that and deal with all of that as you're preparing for the season?
Yeah, I mean, I would say pressure is a privilege. But I think all of my personal expectations are all tied into the team expectations. You know, my legacy is only going to be as great as the team was. So I'm really just focused on getting the team ready, getting offense right for Stetson week 1.
Mm-hmm. Tell me about looking at your offense. What do you see? And I'll ask you a similar question I asked Coach Oregon. What are you seeing around you as strengths, things you got to get better at, and the positions where you're going to need new guys to step up, the next man up mentality?
Yeah, I think it starts up front. Like, I'm very confident in the guys we're reloading. Only got one guy who didn't have a ton of snaps for us last year, but the other 4 I'm super confident in. And you know, our running backs got a lot of touches for us last year, but you know, we're going to be able to use them in plenty of different ways. And then outside, we're obviously not returning our top pass catchers, but we got a lot of young guys who are very talented. And I'm really excited to see what they do in camp. In terms of weaknesses, I guess I would just say, you know, that chemistry. You know, I had to, you know, take the spring off to, you know, recover from some injuries. So we're going to have to make up for some lost time in that regard, you know, in fall camp, and just take advantage, you know, get to know the guys as people, and, you know, just build that foundation of chemistry. So, you know, come week 1, we'll be gelling really well.
Let me ask you, Ty, from your perspective, I'm going to ask you to give a scouting report, not on your defense, but on your offense, right? So you're up against these guys all the time. So looking at them, if somebody says to you, all right, tell us about this Harvard offense, what's the answer? What do you say about it?
I think we're going to be great. I'm actually glad you asked this question because I think we got 4 running backs. I mean, obviously Craig is great, but talk about the other guys real quick. I think we got 4 running backs that can play at a high level down the line. I think we got receivers that exploded during the spring that are turning some eyes. And then obviously Seamus is a great tight end. But outside of that, I think we got 2 other tight ends that can play, and not Ryan Osborne. Along with that, I think our O-line is going to be solid. A lot of returners, a lot of old guys. And outside of that, just mentally, I think they're all going to be ready for week 1 and on.
Jaden, same question to you about your defense. You're up against these guys 7-on-7 full team drills. You know, you see these guys every day. So your scouting report on Ty and your defense would be what?
Yeah, I mean, I love competing against them. I think in terms of any defense we face as an offense, you know, they give us the hardest looks. You know, what you see pre-snap isn't what you're going to get post-snap. And, you know, they work well, they're cohesive, and, you know, they're well led by Ty. You know, he's making all the calls and stuff like that. So, you know, just expect a cohesive unit that, like, you know, runs to the ball, they fly to the ball, they want to make every play. But they're definitely, you know, fundamentally sound, and they always, you know, stick to their job.
Coach, let me come back to you for a second and again bring up this notion of expectations. And different coaches deal with it differently. Some, you know, head on saying, okay, Harvard, preseason #1 pick. All right. You have some sensational football players on your team who are on watch list for national awards. How do you deal coming off of an Ivy League championship? And I mentioned, you know, as a compliment to you, one of just a handful of Ivy coaches who have been able to do that in their first season. So how do you deal with expectations? And weave into that also the notion of an Ivy championship would carry with it a chance for a national championship. How do you deal with that?
Yeah, I mean, these are grown men, so you don't have to trick them into thinking anything other than knowing, like, the expectations at Harvard are to win Ivy League championships. I knew that day 1 when I got here. That's the expectation every year. So it's not something you hide from. You really need to embrace the fact that you do have a big bullseye on your back. And I mean, we lost 2 games last year, and both opponents' fans rushed the field. So there's not a lot of Ivy League schools where that happens at. So you got to embrace the idea that you are the villain, and go in there with that idea, like, yeah, everybody's going to give us their best game. And ultimately, you know, the results will take care of themselves if you just focus on, you know, daily improvement every day during training camp, and then, you know, weekly being 1-0. You'll get to that point at the end where, you know, have an Ivy League championship, have an opportunity to play for a national championship. So, but really, you know, I'm not going to try to hide it from them. They know that's the expectations here. That's why they came to Harvard.
Yeah, that's a great comment. I suspect that just about every football coach and player in the country would like to be the ones to have the target on them. That they are so respected and so feared that everybody wants to beat them and will rush the field if they do. Let me bring some of our media folks in. Alex Vispoli from ESPN is joining us with a question. Hey, Alex, welcome. Jump in, please.
Appreciate it. Thank you, Jack, for being available and doing this again this year. I had a question for Ty. I thought you said something interesting earlier when you were talking about the chance to win what you said was a real or outright championship. That makes me think that there was a bitter taste in your mouth left by the way last season ended. You had a chance for an outright championship going into the last game. Was that a motivating factor for you guys? Has it been a motivating factor for you getting ready for this season to not let anybody else share a title with you guys at the end of this upcoming season?
Yes, sir. I grew up in a way where not everyone gets a trophy. So in terms of your question, yeah, bitter taste in our mouths. We're gonna keep working so we can get that outright championship, and we don't have to share a ring with 200 other kids. So.
And then I just had a quick question for Jaden. You talked about, it's a newer group as far as who you're connecting with, who you're throwing with, as far as the wide receivers. You had a really special relationship with Cooper, and obviously that's going to be impossible to replicate with some of the younger guys who are stepping into those receiver roles. Not being able to play in the spring, what's the best way to build that chemistry with those guys when you get into training camp and you get ready for the season when it's a short amount of time? How do you build up that chemistry?
Yeah, I think it definitely started in the spring. Even though I wasn't playing, I was still, behind the quarterbacks for every rep of, 7-on-7 team reps, just trying to coach even the quarterbacks up and, the receivers, how they should change up their routes. So I think just a general knowledge based on how I like things and how, I guess in previous years we've ran it. I think it started in the spring. And then, once, fall camp starts, with the summer, with the work we got in the summer, we'll definitely be able to carry that into the fall. And, everyone's going to be on the same page starting. But, there's still that level that we need to build on and get to maybe not to where me and Coop were, but definitely, that starts with friendships. So getting there and then we'll be good.
Appreciate it, guys.
Thanks, Alex. Thanks for joining us. Is James on? James had a question. James Anders is with us. Hey, James,
Yes.
welcome.
Hey, how you doing today? This question is specifically for Jaden. I work with a blog called the Ivy Covered Pigskin. Jaden, your 2024 numbers were just phenomenal. I mean, 23 TDs to 3 picks, real consistent, multiple 300-plus yard games. My question to you is, going into this year, you are the QB to watch that everybody's looking for in the league. What personally do you feel you would like to see in yourself to improve on, or what would be your own personal goals this year for this season?
Yeah, as good as the numbers might look, I watched a ton of film this summer and just left a lot out there, yards, touchdowns, you name it. But like I mentioned before, my success can only be measured to how good the team is. So I'm focused on, going 1-0 every weekend and, taking the next step as a leader, I would say.
James, thank you. Hey, Coach, let me ask you pretty much the same question that James just asked Jaden. First year as a head coach, you know the league. You played for Princeton, coached there. But it was your first year. And I'm often fascinated to hear coaches talk about their difference between their first year and second. We often hear coaches say that for a team, your biggest improvement is from your first game to your second game. I don't know if that's true or not, but you do hear it often. I'm just curious. You had great success with your first year, but I'm curious as to how you looked at then your own evolution from a first year head coach at Harvard to your second year as a head coach at Harvard.
Yeah, I mean, I'm much more comfortable with just Harvard and how it works, which, saves me time to focus on more the football end of things. Because I'm not trying to figure out, well, how do I do this? How do I do that? I think the steps I want to take to improve is doubling down on, the relationship building with the players. Because ultimately, they're the ones who are out there doing everything on the field. And my job as a head coach is to have a great relationship with them and help them outside of football even. So the more time I can spend around the players and getting to know them, better is going to be real important. And you have a new group of incoming, first years, which obviously I know better because I had recruited them, but I'm looking forward to just getting to spend a lot of time with them. And then, ultimately, I look at myself as being in charge of, how we are as a football team and my vision for it. And really it's about the ball execution and attacking. So, being the one who's continuing to push those three principles of what I want us to look like as a football team, I'm going to try to take that to another level because those are areas that will help us win games. And ultimately, like, I got to be in charge of making sure those things are happening throughout the entire program. So, I think there's definitely room for growth for me as a coach. And, those are areas really I want to take a big step on.
Yeah. We talked a little bit about the notion of playing for a national championship. And Jaden, let me ask you this question. Is that something you guys talk about?
Obviously when the announcement came out, it was exciting, but we're not really focused on that. We're focused on Stetson right now and just getting better each and every day.
Yeah. Ty, how about you?
Yeah, I kind of just echo what Jaden said. I mean, we're roommates, so like we talk all the time. When the announcement came out, I feel like it's huge for the league, huge for like a lot of past teams. Now they can kind of keep talking about what could have been, stuff like that, and definitely exciting for the teams to come. But yeah, we're definitely excited about week one.
Well, we're all excited about week one for everybody. Certainly looking forward to a Harvard team that had great success last year, predicted to have great success this year, surrounded by some exceptional young men and some exceptional players, got an exceptional head coach. All of that usually leads to success, and it has in the past. So once again, so the heads up first game, Harvard is at Stetson on Saturday, September 20th at 1 p.m. So Ty, Jaden, good to talk with you guys. Best wishes for the season. Stay safe, stay healthy. Coach, always good to talk with you. And again, congratulations on your first year last year. We'll look forward to watching this Harvard team again this year. We got you, I think, 2 games on the ESPN networks. The final one, of course, being Harvard Yale, which is always a fun one. So, gentlemen, thanks. Everybody be well, stay safe, and we will see you on the field soon. Take care.
Thank you, Jack. Take care.
So that's our conversation with the Harvard folks. Next group up is coming from Hanover, New Hampshire, from Dartmouth. Let's see if we're going to be joined by head coach Sammy McCorkle, also offensive lineman Delby Lemieux, defensive back Sean Williams. We should be getting everybody on in just a moment here. So I see Coach McCorkle, see Delby. And I see Sean. All right. Gentlemen, so good to have you. Coach, it's always good to see you. I hope you're having a good summer.
Great to see you, Jack. Yeah, it's been a good one. It's been a quick one for sure. So hope you've had a good summer as well as you recover.
Yeah, I know. They do go quickly, don't they? Let me start. All right. I said we do have Delby. We have Sean with us. You guys can pop on screen if you'd like. And let's talk a little bit. Coach, what we've been doing here is asking our head coaches to give us a bit of a state of the program coming into the 2025 season. Your thoughts leading into this new season.
Well, first, I want to thank you, Jack, for being the voice and the face of the Ivy League. I've done a phenomenal job just spreading, and be able to advertise what this league has to offer. And it's been phenomenal. And I also want to thank.
It's a labor of love. I can tell you.
Right.
Thank
yeah.
You. Yep.
And I want to thank Robin Harris and JJ Klein for putting this together today. I mean, just once again, to have the opportunity to show what the Ivy League is all about. This is fantastic, and I appreciate their efforts. Super excited about going into the preseason next week. The guys have done a phenomenal job ever since the season ended last year. Our new strength coach, Connor McNally, has come in and has done a phenomenal job with our players. And the biggest thing I really wanted to express is how hard our players have put in and day out. We talk about taken this program to the next level. And I think everything that they've been doing, they've completely committed to it as a whole program, as a team, making sure day in and day out they're doing that. And super excited to start preseason next week. We've got a number of returners coming back, but we also have a number of guys who maybe don't have the same amount of experience as those returning players, but have the talent. And I think the biggest thing is as we go through each day of preseason camp, establishing an identity across the board at every position, which will also help establish an identity for our football program for this upcoming season.
You mentioned guys coming in. You've obviously been part of this program for a long time, head coach the last 2 years. And I will mention, as I mentioned for previously for Coach Ulrich, you're one of just a handful of head coaches in this historic league that has won or shared an Ivy title in his first season. You've been able to do it in your first 2 seasons, which has just been a marvelous accomplishment. Reflects on you, but I'm sure, as you say, on your staff, on your players, on the administration. But that's something that is worth a comment, and a congratulations to you for being able to do that.
Thank you, Jack.
Looking at this season, again, you've been around for a long time. Some teams have more maturity than others. Some you gotta get a whole lot of young guys plugged in and playing quickly. How about this team? How do you view that in terms of its maturity level?
Well, I think it's a good mix. I mean, I think, on one side of the ball, offensively, we return a number of guys who have started for us. And on defense, we return our entire secondary or starters from last year. But I think the thing, especially I don't call them holes you're filling, but the guys that need to replace, we lost some really good players. And but at the same time, our staff does a phenomenal job of developing our players, getting our players on the field as much as possible to get that game time experience. And I think that's what's going to be critical. And those guys, maybe once again, those guys who maybe have not played as many snaps as a number of guys in our team, they have that experience. And you can just see the commitment they've put in the off season. They're ready to be that guy. They're ready to be the next guy. But we talk about it all the time. We don't play with 11 on each side of the ball. We play with 22 on each side of the ball. We need to have guys that are prepared regardless of what the situation is. It could be injury. It could be mistakes. It could be just, hey, we want to make sure that we have enough players that can play throughout an entire game. That's going to be critical as the year goes on toward the end of the season.
Let's give me a sort of an overall view, if you will, and let's start with the offense. Right, coming into the start of practice, what do you see as the strengths of this offense, and what do you see as things that you're going to need to develop for this team?
I think offensively, we feel like we have some playmakers. We have Chris Corbo, tight end, All-American from last season, a guy that, he can make things happen. We return almost every single one of our wide receivers, led by Daniel Houghton, one of our team captains. And then at quarterback position, we have Grayson Sagne, who started a few games last year, who has played in every single game last year. So it's not going to be new to him. He's going to be able to step out there and command the field, command the offense. And offensive line led by Delby, another All-American who's on here. We return a number of guys who've had playing experience up there, but with him leading that group of guys, being a mentor to them, that's where it's all going to start. It's going to start at that offensive line. And we know, game in, game out in an Ivy League football game, it comes down to the trenches. It's who can dominate, who can win at the line of scrimmage. Regardless of the defense and offense that you run schematic wise, you've got to win up front. And we've got guys like Delby who can anchor that group. And that's where we're excited about, and we have guys who, we lost some guys offensively, but we got some guys, especially at the running back position. We had DJ Crowther and Desmond, who are at that running back position, and Dylan Elder, who was a freshman last year, who are very talented guys who have experience that we expect them to step up and continue to progress like we need them to help us be successful.
And from the defensive side of the ball?
Defensive side of the ball, like I said, we return our entire secondary. And I think that's very important. We got Sean Williams, who's an All-Ivy player for us, who's played a lot of snaps at Dartmouth College. And to me, to have a guy like that who's a team captain who can be essentially, he's going to run the show back there. And I think having the ability, and we've got a number of guys that are going to have their opportunity at the linebacker position, at the D-line position, who are very talented players. A couple of those guys were injured last year, didn't have a chance to play. Now it's their turn. And there are no gimmies. There are no guarantees. They know that they have to come out every single day and compete in order to put us in a situation where we are going to play team football. And we're not going to rely on just one position to help us win games. It's going to take every single individual on that field, whoever that may be, to help us day in and day out.
Let me bring Delby and Sean into the conversation. Delby, I'll start with you. Coach has been talking about the offensive line as a strength here. Coming into the season, we know a lot of the positive aspects of this offense, what you have coming back here. But I'll ask a similar question to what I asked the coach, but you as a player, as an All-American player last year, preseason All-American, when you get together with your teammates here and you talk about what we need to get better at, what do you talk about?
Yeah, so I would say the biggest thing for us in a year like this, where we've graduated a few guys, but we're keeping a few guys like myself and Konstantin Spork who have played a significant number of snaps. I think the biggest thing is getting everyone on the same page. We've got a lot of young guys, a lot of talented, strong guys who have worked their butts off in the offseason the last year and 2 years. And now that they're in the position to make that jump from the 2s and 3s up to the 1s, it's really just about how do you play consistently at a high level every single time and making sure you do the right thing every single play.
Hey, Sean, I'm going to ask you about your defense in a moment, but let me ask you to analyze your offense, if I could. All right, you guys match up, day in, day out, drills, 7-on-7, full team. If someone was saying to you, okay, what is the strength of this offense? What do you or what will other Ivy defenses have to focus on if they're going to try to stop this Dartmouth offense? What would the answer be?
Yeah, I'll first start by saying it's probably the most fun being in these practices, being in the spring game, and getting to compete against such an elite group of people. It's actually, like, if we were game planning against them, it would be pretty tough because of the different aspects that they could actually attack. At the wide receiver position, all 4 guys can really take the top off. They can also find space in the open field. The O-line, they're always going to, hold it down like they always have. Grayson Saunier at quarterback, he'll always find a way to make a play even if you don't think it's there. And the running backs will also just run the ball very, very hard. DJ Crowder, Dez, just some of those guys just really, really good. So it would be tough. It would be tough to game plan against them, but it would be a lot of fun, like it always is.
And let's talk about your defense. All right, so you have some veterans coming back. You're going to fill some positions here. I haven't started camp yet, but you had spring and you had some time to get together in the summer. So talking about your defense, again, similar question to coaches. What do you see as what's the strength of this? And then when you're together in that defensive room, what do you talk about that you have to get better at?
Yeah, the biggest thing for us right now is that chemistry piece. Like, obviously, as Coach said, the secondary has a lot of experience, and there's experience on other parts of the field, but there's also a lot of new guys, and those new guys have to feel comfortable. And with that comes that experience or that chemistry on the field, and very much just as important off the field. So that's kind of the main thing that I think we need to focus on, and we have been focusing on, and just consistency, staying 10 toes down, day in and day out, every day. So,
Coach, let me come back to you for a second, and let's talk about the quarterback play this year. Dartmouth has been blessed, let's say just the last decade or so, with some really talented quarterbacks. And some of them have been great throwers, some have been great runners, some of them are packaged where they can throw and they can run. Talk a little bit. We saw some of Grayson Saunier last year. Certainly in the Yale game, we saw him come in and just lead an exceptional comeback by Dartmouth. What do you see coming from your quarterback, or what are you hoping to get? Better question, from your quarterback play this season?
Well, I think the biggest thing we talk about all the time, and Coach Montgomery is our new offensive coordinator, has done a phenomenal job with our offense and with especially the quarterback room. And I think the biggest thing is confidence and in staying within the game. I think it's very important, and that's something we've always talked about with our quarterbacks. Just take what they give you. Don't try to force things. I think the biggest things we get offensively, you always got to take care of the ball. And I think that, being able to take care of the ball and be able to keep plays alive and series alive. And then the biggest thing is we got to finish at the end. We need to put points on the board. You just look across the board in this league, offenses, they're explosive. They can put up some points. And you obviously don't want to get in a track meet, but offensively, when you have opportunities to score touchdowns, you want to score touchdowns. And I think that's our biggest push is finishing across the board. But I think offensively, as our quarterback, and Grayson has done a good job of that. He's done a great job in this in the spring of just really understanding what we are doing offensively, and more importantly, understanding what the defense is doing, and taking advantage of those opportunities when they come up.
Let me ask about something else. New to the Ivy this season, and we talked about the fact that this year the Ivy Champions is going to have a chance to play for a national championship. And it may well not be just the champion. I mean, we could easily, I've talked about this in the past, there have been years where the Ivy League could easily have gotten 2 teams, maybe more, into the playoffs here. But this year we know that a champion's going to get a shot, maybe somebody else will. So, Coach, from your perspective as a coach, do you talk about that? Is there something, it's new, it's big. We in the media have been talking about it for years, and we will talk about it all season long, I'm sure. But I'm curious about, from your perspective as a coach, does that become part of your conversation with your team?
Well, I know the players are talking about it. I mean, they deservedly so. I mean, it's a great opportunity for our league to be able to have an opportunity to have a team of the Ivy League represent us in the FCS championship. And I think that the goal is always to win the Ivy League championship, because if you don't take care of that, it doesn't matter. And our goal is always to prepare ourselves to play for an Ivy League championship year in and year out. But obviously having that playoff opportunity, it's part of what we talk about all the time about taking this program to the next level. And I think that it is a little bit of it is a great incentive for our players when they train and when they work out and they're preparing themselves. And there's more to it now. There's more on the line. And I think we don't talk about it on a daily basis. We talk about winning that day, go 1-0, and you take care of your business. And as part of the process of going 1-0, the goals you're trying to reach, they're going to be there. And you got to just make sure you're prepared when that opportunity comes.
I've said this before, that over the last, let's say, 10 years or so, I remember a Dartmouth team, Harvard team, Princeton team, Yale team that could well have gone deep into that championship run, perhaps, and win the ultimate title. So it's so exciting for us now to have that real possibility. Delby, how about you as a player? So you've gone through a number of seasons now, and I don't want to call it a frustration, because maybe it's something that we in the media emphasize more than you as players did. But, we would always start off, along with Eric Freed, who's our great play-by-play guy in the Ivy games. We would start off almost every game saying, hey, Ivy League doesn't have a chance to play for a national championship, so they're playing for an Ivy championship. Every game means more. Every game is a playoff game in some ways, right? And you've lived through that now, Delby. Does this change at all for you, this notion of, all right, yep, we want to play for an Ivy championship, but you know what? We could also be in the mix for a national championship thing. Do you talk with other players about that?
Personally, I do not. I don't think it changes too much, frankly. It's just like before we had a championship, everyone's sights was on winning an Ivy League championship. And, to achieve that goal, it's not about looking out into the future 10 weeks at the end of the season, but it's about that week. What are you going to do to get yourself better to win come Saturday? And so I don't think it changes much. I think there's an excitement to it. And I think we're all really excited about that prospect. But at the end of the day, guys like Sean, myself, Daniel, and our team are focused on what are we going to do at the start of camp to prepare for week 1 and how those things will stack over time.
John, I'll ask a slightly different question to you. Not you talk about it, you focus on it, but what was your reaction when you first heard about it back in December, when you heard, hey, you know what? From now on, Ivy champion has a chance to be a national championship. What was your reaction to that?
I mean, just as probably every other Ivy League football player, like just excitement from head to toe. Like, oh, wow, we get this opportunity to, not only play for a national championship, but to extend the season with the guys next to you. I think that's more where the focus was for us, just being able to play more games with, our best friends, essentially.
Yeah. And I thought, again, as a media covering the Ivy League, and as a former Ivy League player, wouldn't it be great to get a home game too, right? Coming out of the blocks and the national championship to play up in Hanover, and invite these guys into Hanover in November or December and say, hey, welcome to what we live with here, guys. Coach, question for you here, if I can. Dartmouth's had great success in let's just say the last 10 years. Obviously, you can go back farther than that, but great success in the last 10 years. And with success comes expectations. And you have coming back some all Ivy players, some all American players, coming off of a second shared championship in a row. How do you deal with How do you deal with those kind of expectations? Because now I'm sure you have media folks, you have alums, you have friends, you have people saying, "Hey, it's Dartmouth. We win championships every year." Right now, that obviously doesn't happen every year for anybody, but that I'm sure a lot of people think that. So, as a coach, how do you deal with the expectations yourself as a coach, and how do you deal with those expectations with your players?
Well, I think, myself and these two gentlemen that are on here with me today, I mean, we set very high expectations for ourselves. And I think regardless of the outside noise, we expect as a program and as a staff and as players, we expect the best out of our, max effort every single day. And I think we set the bar high here, and that is the expectation. When our guys, anything they do on the field, off the field, everything matters, and everything is part of us continue to take ourselves to the next level. And you got to keep the noise out, right? When good things are going, everybody's going to pat you on your back, and when bad things happen, people are going to tell you you're doing it wrong and you're not good at it, and you just can't. You got to be able to block that out. And I think our guys do a very good job. We have a very good culture here. We've built that here. Our guys lean on each other. We have a very resilient group, a very resilient staff, and our guys do a phenomenal job of knowing that it's going to take all of us working together and preparing together to get where we need to get. And like I said, every day is all about taking this thing to the next level, and that's what our expectations are. But it's attention to detail every single day. That's critical, and that's my responsibility, and our staff's responsibility, and our players' responsibility to hold each other accountable and make sure that we do that every single day.
Looking forward to getting up to Hanover to cover one of the games in October. It's always a fun trip. I always love heading up there and catching a Dartmouth team. So, Coach McCorkle, Delby, Sean, thank you all for joining us here. Congratulations on last year. We're looking forward to what Dartmouth's going to be able to do this year. So, all of you guys, players, stay safe. Enjoy the season. Coach, always good to see you. We'll see you when we get up there. And good luck to you all moving forward. Take care now.
Thanks, Jack. We'll see you.
Thank you. So, moving on now. Our next group is coming from Cornell. We're going to have head coach Dan Swanstrom, also defensive back Damon Barnes, and wide receiver Parker Woodring are going to be joining us. So we're getting them all online with us right now. We can continue our conversations. Again, media members, a reminder, use that raise hand function so you can jump on with some questions as we move forward here. So I can see that Coach is with us. Damon is with us. Looks like Parker is with us. Parker, you can join us. Good. All right. Everybody's here. Welcome to all of you. Thanks so much for joining us, Coach. It's always good to see you again. Looking forward to Cornell's season moving forward. Coach, let me start with you if I can. All right. And then I want to talk to the guys a little bit, but I'll ask you the same questions we've asked the other coaches, and that is to give us just a sense of your thoughts moving into this new season.
Yeah, I mean, football's exciting. And, I've been here 18, 19 months, and, maybe we haven't had quite the results or the opportunity to get the results that we wanted as a program, and that's okay. But we've had a lot of nice small victories along the way that people on the outside wouldn't be able to see, nor do we make it public. And a big thing for us is we're just trying to figure out who we are. We're trying to figure out where we are going. We are trying to build a foundation for this program that will last a long, long time. So overall, just really, it's just excitement to see how good we can be. And I don't know any other way to do it, but just one day at a time here.
Let me ask you about this first year to second year as a head coach. We oftentimes hear coaches talk about a team has its most significant improvement from their first game to the second game. I don't know if that's true or not, but you do hear it often as an ad is. My question to you is, from your first year to your second year, give me your sense of what the team now, what looks like, what the culture looks like, the progress you think you are on the road to making, understanding that nothing can't happen that quickly in developing a football program. But your thoughts first year to second year now.
Yeah, I mean, you know, building football programs and going from year one to year two, you know, usually there's some bumps because your process isn't linear. Like it's not just a perfect, you know, it's not just a perfect angle on the curve. Like there's back and forth. There's usually a group of seniors in your first year who are very, very hungry to win. You really don't get a chance to recruit your first recruiting class. And usually you take some bumps within the change in the head coaching process. So, you know, sometimes that first class isn't as strong as you would like, you know, athletically, even though I do think the staff before us yielded a very strong first year class that I got to inherit. And then those seniors leave and they're very hungry, and usually you have an opportunity to mold them and push them because it's their last chance. And now you have a group of students who, in the second year, are heading in a completely different direction. You know, maybe you find some ego starting to emerge, and it's a little harder to get your philosophy and team together in the second year. I knew that coming in, and I kind of know that process. And we were very aware of it and worked very hard as a team. And the players worked very hard at it. And like I said, through my different experiences at different programs, you know, some of these victories that you see within your program, they happened earlier along our process in the spring here. And, you know, there's a couple things that happened very early in the spring where I was just like noted, you know, let's just make a note of that because that's different. And usually that's a year 3, a year 4, a year 5, when you kind of see those, you know, to see those habits from your students. So year 2 is very challenging. Year 2 is, in a lot of ways, is harder than the first year when the excitement and the energy in your honeymoon phase is replaced with the reality of fixing a program.
Yeah, I can tell you, and I said this to you, I think last season, as somebody who's an outsider, but who has watched the Cornell program for many, many years, along with others. You saw that progress. You saw progress being made, and as you said, it's not always apparent to somebody who's not within the program or doesn't watch it all the time. But I can tell you, I can attest to the fact that you can see that progress being made. Let me ask you about then coming into the season overall, and let's start with your offense. All right. Give me a sense of what you think coming into the season. And I know camp hasn't started yet, but you had the spring, you had some workouts in the summer. So your thoughts on the strengths of this offense coming into the season. What do you see?
Yeah, like you said, it's a lot of unknowns, you know, especially with this group. We were pretty good on offense last year, but as most people know, we had a very, very talented quarterback. And in a lot of ways, the quarterback can be the deodorant and cover a lot of the issues within your program. And so the reality is, I'm not really sure how good we are. I'm not really sure how much Jameson covered up for us and how much legitimate talent and work and dedication is on that offensive side of the ball. I'm cautiously optimistic. You know, like, I mean, basically the whole offensive line's back plus, you know, 6 and a 7th who started multiple games and played a lot of snaps. So we have 7 guys back up front. All the tailbacks who took snaps for us last year are back. You know, Eddie Tillman took some, but, you know, Robert Tucker and Ian Pope are back. You know, the tight ends that played for us are both back. And, you know, for the most part, our receiver corps is back. You know, I know, you know, probably a lot of people don't know this, but, you know, Sam Asunga played last year on a torn ACL, had surgery after the season. He'll probably miss this year. And so with that, even with that, everyone who took snaps at wideout is back, you know, so really the whole offense is back besides Jameson.
Mm-hmm. Besides Jameson is an interesting comment because as you know, this quarterback driven league, you know, we've had some exceptional quarterbacks playing in this league last 15, 20 years. Jameson is certainly in that category. I covered his first snap as a freshman, his first year. We were there covering the game, got to see him develop. So you had an interesting observation about a good quarterback can cover up a lot of flaws in an offense. Absolutely. I know you haven't started camp yet, but what are your thoughts about that quarterback group in terms of finding the person? And it doesn't have to be the next Jameson Long. It's just going to be the next Cornell quarterback who you can count on. What are your thoughts?
Well, I'm very accustomed to having a good quarterback, and very accustomed to coaching that position and putting somebody in a position to succeed. I really, really like our quarterback room. These are hardworking, driven, talented, athletic, big individuals, and we've been pretty balanced rep wise between 1 and 2, and the third quarterback didn't get as many reps in spring, but he has a tremendous knack of getting completions, and he's another big, strong athlete. So I'm cautiously optimistic about where we're going. That thing is going to be a competition until we put the ball down for Albany, and honestly, it still might continue to be a competition before the Sunday and Monday of our Yale game. And even then, if they force my hand to not make a decision, then I won't make a decision, and we'll play them both. I don't know what's going to happen, but they'll decide who's going to play and who's not going to play. And their work, their ability to get completions, their ability to protect the football, and the ability to get the end zone and get more points than the other team will be the one who emerges as a starting quarterback. But good room, good room.
I can tell you, I haven't been on the field during warmups last year for the games that we did cover, Cornell games. I looking at those quarterbacks saying, hey, as much you can tell from warmups, but looking at these guys saying, hey, there looks like some talent on this team after Jameson lost. So as you said, it gives you an opportunity to, the dilemma of making a choice. Maybe that means that it's a good dilemma to have, that hopefully you'll have quarterbacks who will show up and make it a tough call for you to make. How about the defense? Yeah. How about the defensive side of the ball? How would you characterize strengths coming into the season for the defense and things that you're going to need to improve on from last year?
Yeah, we weren't a great defensive outfit last year, and it's no secret. Like, we can sit here and pretend that we were when the reality is we were not. And one of the big things we need to do is we need to get bigger and stronger down the middle of our defense. And really make a commitment in doing a better job of stopping the run and being better on first and second down collectively as a group. We graduated a few guys, but we got a bunch of guys back who played last year. But it's one of those deals like, okay, we got a bunch of guys back. Okay, well, we didn't play great defense, so now what are they going to do about it? Like, what kind of decisions are we going to make? Like, I know. I don't think we're striking fear to anybody in this league. And I tell our players all the time, like, we're either proving them right or we're proving them wrong every single day. And we got a decision to make as what we want to be as a program. We got to be physically tougher. We got to be mentally tougher on that defensive side of the ball. And if we are not, I'll be wildly disappointed in our process this year as a program.
All right, let me bring Damon and Parker into the conversation if I can. And Damon, I'm going to start with you, all right, as somebody who has experience there. And just to ask you to kind of expand a little bit on what Coach just said about what the needs are, how the defense needs to get better this season. How do you see it?
Great question. I definitely agree that, there are definitely areas that we need to improve on, and there are a lot of guys that need to step up, and including myself, step up in situations where they need to prove to everyone in the league, or prove to each other, prove to themselves that that they deserve to be on the field, and that they have the right mindset going into each game and each practice. So it's a lot of guys in a lot of different positions that have things to prove and need to prove to themselves that they are a force in this league and have the ability to make plays. So it's definitely a lot of guys in a lot of positions on the defense that have things to prove and have to step up to make plays for this defense.
Parker, from your perspective as a wide receiver who had good success last year, You played with a guy who was a franchise quarterback. And, you know, in the Ivy League, you get them for only 4 years. That's it. You know, it's not like the other conferences, especially, you know, with the pandemic era where you could have guys playing for 6 years. So you now are on the receiving end of a significant change that has to take place. So I'm curious in about kind of the mentality of the receivers and working with these quarterbacks and getting away from a guy who was the guy, you know, the Jameson, who set a lot of records, and now getting a new guy in there. Talk a little bit about how that worked during the spring.
Yeah, so I was fortunate enough to have Jameson throwing to me for 3 years, and that was great. But it's really just been great working with the new guys. Just this in the spring and over the summer, we've been running a lot of routes, just working on like our timing with the new quarterbacks, and also getting in the film room and seeing because they obviously see the field a little bit differently than Jameson. So I think that's been a big piece of it is getting in the film room and like going through like, oh, what do you see here? What are your reads here? And stuff like that. So, but it's definitely been good. I've enjoyed it a lot. And I think our timing has looked really good over the summer.
Yeah. And Damon, back to you. And I'll ask you a variation on the question I asked Coach. And that is, let me have you give me a scouting report for the offense. Okay. So you match up against these guys every day. And so if you were putting together a scouting report for Cornell's offense, now again, it's a work in progress. We understand that. Okay, there are some pieces. There are a lot of pieces coming back, but there's some significant pieces that aren't. What would you point to if you were making up this scouting report as what you have to worry about if you're a defense about Cornell's offense?
Yeah, I would say we have a lot of good pass catchers on this offense, and Parker included. He's a very, very tough cover, going against him every day in practice. A lot of good pass catchers. Our tight ends, like Ryder, he's a handful to get off of blocks as well as catch passes. And like Coach said, we're returning a lot of guys on the offensive line, so I look forward to seeing their progress and seeing how they step up as pass blockers and in the run game. And we have a lot of depth at running back, so those guys run hard every play and block hard every play. So I'm also looking forward to see their progress and see the way they contribute to this offense. And I would say, is shaping to be a very high powered offense. So I love those guys, and they compete every day, and every rep they compete. So I'm looking forward to them getting us better, as well as seeing their progress over the summer and going into week 1.
Parker, same question to you, but about the defense, right? You're putting together a scouting report against Damon and the guys on the defensive side of the ball. And what would you be highlighting about these guys coming back into this season, their strengths?
Yeah, I would say like at the beginning of last year, and Coach Swanstrom even said it, they were just running it down our throat, and like we weren't big enough and strong enough. But I don't think that's going to be the case this year. We had 80 guys here basically all summer lifting with one of the best strength coaches in the country, Tony Decker. So all those linemen put on 15, 20 pounds of muscle and just weight. And so I think up front, we're going to be a lot better this year, linebacker core as well. And then we got hard-hitting safeties who come downfield like Damon. So I think our D-line has put on size and strength, and as well as our linebacking core. So I'm looking forward to seeing them fit the run on first and second down this year.
Yeah. So. Coach, let me come back to you about this notion of building a culture, instilling a culture into a team. You've had great success in as a head coach previously before you came here to Cornell. And last year had some moments, where that Cornell team, where they looked really good and they had some successes. You talk about consistency and maybe an absence of consistency. So in this second year, and again, this is sort of a coach existential question, right? And I don't know if you can even answer it, but I just kind of like to ask it. How do you get them to believe in themselves and to believe in you and the culture and the system, so that those moments become more than just isolated moments and become wins?
I don't think that's a complicated question at all, Jack. I mean, confidence comes from quality preparation. If these guys put the level of preparation and put the work in, now here's the problem is it's August 11th and we report on the 17th and the 18th. A lot of those days have come and gone. So if you didn't put the proper work in over these past couple of months, well, you're not going to get the product that you believe that you're going to be. And then when that opportunity comes on the field, you're not going to be confident in yourself to go and perform at the level that you're capable of performing. You're not going to maximize your potential. So, your confidence comes from preparation, and then really belief in myself and belief in what we're doing. It's like anything that 18 to 22-year-olds, they want a coach who truly cares about them, their experience, not them as football players. And they want coaches who can get them better and help them become the best version of themselves and maximize their potential, not only as a football player, but as a person, and push them and strive them to be as good as they can be academically. And you do those things, they don't have to buy into that, but I think they will. Over my career, I think they will. I think I do a tremendous job. I shouldn't say that. I work really hard to set an amazing example and be the first level of leadership for these guys, because the first level of leadership is setting the example. How I do everything, I want to show them how to be the best version of themselves. And then also I want to be able to coach them to be as good as they possibly can be and put them in great situations to succeed. If you do that, you're going to give yourself an opportunity to get buy-in from your team, from your coaches, from your players, from your administrators, to everybody from top to bottom. So I don't think that's a complicated question at all. Quality preparation, set the first level of leadership, truly care about the student athlete and get them better.
Well, as I mentioned, I saw that development last year firsthand in covering the Cornell games, and I fully anticipate, knowing the success you've had, Coach, in the places you've been, and the quality of both athletes and students and people that you have here, guys like Damon and Parker, that it will continue to progress. So I want to thank you all for joining us again for this conversation. A reminder, Cornell opens up at Albany, an in-state rival, on Saturday, September 20th. Evening game at 7 p.m. And we will have Cornell in October on our ESPN coverage. So we'll look forward, Coach and Parker and Damon, to seeing you all then. So everybody, guys, players, do be well, stay safe. Coach, good luck to you, and we'll look forward to seeing you down the road. You all take care now.
Jack, thank you so much.
Thanks for having us.
All right, take care. All right, we are going to move on from Cornell to Columbia. And we're going to be joined by head coach John Poppy, offensive lineman Mark Chapman, defensive lineman Justin Townsend. They should be joining us in just a minute here as we move forward. Again, a reminder to our media folks, please make sure you use that raise hand function to join in on the conversation. We're making this an opportunity for the media to have some conversations with coaches and players. So I'll chat with them first, and then media guys, media folks, just get the flag up and we'll bring you into it. So it looks like we have everybody with us now. Mark, Justin, Coach Poppy, welcome to all of you guys. Thanks so much for joining us.
Jack, great to be here. Appreciate you and everything you do.
Coach, always good to see you. And I have to, I know I did it privately, but wanted to publicly once again congratulate you and Columbia on just an extraordinary season last year. To be able to share that title, a piece of that title. Again, I'm sure you're probably tired of hearing since 1961 it hadn't happened, but maybe that's a good thing that we keep repeating that it did happen with you guys, and you did make it happen. It was, I think, one of the great college football stories of last year, and I think it's something that underscores the value of the Ivy League, the talent in the Ivy League, and how very unique we are in the Ivy League. So, Coach, just an opportunity once again to congratulate on everything that happened last year. But it does lead me, I think, into a good first question for you, Coach, and that is, I always think this is interesting for coaches coming off of a championship season. Does it change the way you prepare? Does it change your conversations with your team members? Does it have any impact at all moving forward, or is it just kind of in the rearview mirror?
It has an impact because it creates a hunger, right? It's a hunger with success. And with us now having that announcement of playoffs, right? FCS playoffs, I know it's a big topic for the Ivy League right now. There's obviously playing for more. There's no predefined number of games for our student athletes. Now we can play beyond 40 games in your career. So there's enough newness, enough evolution to the Ivy League football season in 2025 that it was easy to move on for our young people and the guys that are going to suit up and coach for this 2025 team.
Yeah. Let me ask you about that with that declaration that now the Ivy champion will get a chance to play for a national championship. And it's been applauded by everybody who's any connection at all to Ivy League football. But I'm curious as a coach, and I've asked some other coaches this, is it something you talk about? Or is there a time maybe later in the season you talk about? How do you handle that?
Yeah, I think the first thing, you're trying to win your conference, right? So that's the first thing. And we're trying to make sure that, with Lafayette, we're setting a great foundation for the rest of the season to see, okay, we have these new faces and new places, and guys are stepping into larger roles, right? Okay, who are we going to be from game one? Is that the right people to get us to the best 11 on the field or best 22 and plus special teams on the field, right? So, for us, we definitely talk about the end goal, right? What are our standards expectations as a program entering 2025? We do that in the winter through spring, and we'll do that at the first meeting when these guys are back next week. And after that, now we're involved in our process, and that's what we're hungry to start.
Yeah. Let me ask you to give me a little sort of state of the program. I've asked each of the coaches this, to just generally your thoughts coming into this new season.
Yeah, we got great leadership, right? I see two guys here today that are returning all Ivy players, and our whole staff is coming back on the field, off the field. So I think that's awesome when you have a championship season and your program is resistant to change at least a little bit in terms of the faces and voices. And that, I think, is a testament to how we're doing things, because guys definitely had opportunities to do other things or same things in different places. And so the fact that they're wearing the C and wearing the line is extremely, important to me. And I take that as a huge compliment to how we're building here. And so, this winter, this spring, these guys attacked it the way they should, right? We didn't play our best in the big moments. Dartmouth, Harvard, right? There was a lot of plays left on that field. And I think that's what is a driving force to this team and why guys like Justin Townsend came back to wear the Columbia uniform again and to correct those crucial errors in big time games and now take another step forward as a program, whatever that may be record wise. Right. And, for the state of the program this summer, guys did a great job sacrificing once again to be here in New York City all summer long with each other, developing a chemistry that I think fueled a lot of our success last year. Right. This is an awesome place to be in the summer. And the fact that we had the representation we did because of internship opportunities, because of just employment opportunities in general, it's a testament to these guys and how much fun they have competing with each other and being around each other.
Let me follow on that for 1 second, because I think that's a really important point, and that is, for your players, and I've mentioned this before. So I played for legendary Carm Koza at Yale, Hall of Fame coach, and Carm used to say, he said, "I'll take my guys after they've played for me and they've gone out in the real world, and I'll compare them and their success levels to any other college, any other program, any place at all." And I know Columbia is the same way. I know a lot of Columbia grads who've gone on to football players, gone to do great things. But I would imagine there was a time, and you probably know this, there was a time when Columbia's location was used against them in recruiting. But now it seems to me that, and you just sort of mentioned it, let me ask you to elaborate a little. It seems to me that now it's kind of a bright, shining point of your recruiting, yes?
It has to be, right? I mean, we are where we are, and what exciting place to be for an 18 to 22-year-old to grow and develop from a young man into a man, right? We like to say we're developing a self-sufficient man that takes care of his business the right way when he leaves here, and we own that, right? It's a constant fight of growth here. It's not an easy place to experience, to be around, to feel comfortable heading into. But if you're not comfortable with that burden, you don't belong here. And that's great. We're going to find the young men that want that burden, are excited about that burden of New York City, and turn it into that positive and fuel to grow as a young person.
Yeah. Let's talk a little bit about, again, a sort of, 10,000 foot view down. And let's start with the offense. All right. So what you have so far. Now, again, you haven't started camp yet, I know, but you know what you have coming back in the spring. You had work in the summer. What are you looking to as what you think will be the strengths of this offense coming back? And then what are you looking at in terms of what you think you need to develop for the offense to be where you think it can be?
Similar to last year, the strength is going to be up front, right? Even though we lose a great player and John Iannuzzi, who's off playing at Central Michigan, and Pat Colicchio started every game and also played center for us against Cornell. We returned 6 guys that started a game or played significant snaps. And Mark's obviously coming back from injury. Ryan Carr will come back from injury, who we lost at Penn. I mean, we played 3 different centers, and that was great growth. 2 different tackles, 2 different guards, 3 different guards. So that should be the strength of our team. We returned 2 running backs, Malcolm Terry, Griff Johnson, that played significant reps. And it's probably a combination of those 2 that have to replace, a great player, second all-time leading rusher, and Joey Georgie. And then, 2 receivers we lose, Marcus Lemon and Bryson Canny. It's probably going to be, a collection of people, right? Jordan Kelly, Titus Evans, Hutch Crow, who's a newcomer that we're excited about, Christian Cardi, right? Braylon Gardoni, who played for us in significant snaps. And there's probably a guy or 2 I'm neglecting to mention, not because they're not in the mix, but just because those are the names on top of my head. And then Braden Dougherty, who played every single snap just about at tight end for us, except for the Cornell game. We are really excited about what he can bring to our offense and take another step forward in the receiving game. Because the run game, he was phenomenal. And now he's got to take a step forward as a pass catcher and a route runner.
How about the quarterback position? What are you anticipating for that to develop this year?
Well, Chase, when Chase Goodwin went down against Dartmouth, we're leaving the Penn game. We're top in the country in red zone offense and top of the country in third down percentage offense. And obviously we manipulated certain things to the strengths of the quarterbacks that played after him, but we're excited about Chase's health and him coming back. We think he's a difference maker, and the way he leads, he's nominated and was elected as a junior captain, which is very rare. And so he has the opportunity to become a 2-time captain. And so that just shows you the respect he has for, with his teammates. And then Caleb Sanchez backing him up, we're excited about that. And then Cole Freeman's going to do some different things for us this year. He's a Swiss Army knife, and he's as tough a football player as I've been around. And we're excited about his new role, taking snaps, being in the slot, being at running back. We're going to move him all over the place.
How about from the defensive perspective? What do you see coming back? Strengths coming back, and what do you see? And again, a lot of people didn't realize that was a great Columbia defense last year. One of the nationally ranked scoring defenses. What do you see coming back from that defense?
Just the same, conviction, right, in the process for our defense. And, led by Justin Townsend coming back, and Josh Powell, Chuck Newton, who filled in after Rock Amelia went down at Yale. Jack Schmakowski, all-Ivy player. Carter McRae, who I thought should have been Rookie of the Year. No shade to Matt Childs, but I thought Carter McRae really earned that, starting every game from Penn and playing every single snap on throughout the rest of the season. And so there are some guys that have to step up at safety for us, right? You're graduating guys that played in basically 40 career games. I mean, that's a phenomenal statistic for Aaron Brebner and Hayden McDonald.
Those guys, I felt like I was calling their names for like a decade. Those guys at the back end of that defense. I think Eric Fried, our play-by-play guy, said, I think they're having Social Security checks sent to them in New York City at this stage. But that's a lot of talent to lose.
Hayden's going to play at Nevada, and there's young guys behind that. I think the best thing for those young people coming in the program, they get to see 2 awesome human beings do it the right way and so successfully that there's something ingrained in these young guys coming in to fill those shoes in a major way.
Yeah. Let me bring in Mark and Justin in the conversation. Mark, talk about the idea of getting to come back and play. And why that? Because there are other guys who might say, you know what, I can move on. It's time to do something different, either someplace different, or a move into my next stage of life here. Why was it important for you to come back? Mark, you with us?
Sorry, is that a question for me or Justin? Because Justin's the one who's doing the 5th year.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm looking at you, and I'm saying Mark. Yeah, Justin, jump in on that.
Yeah, I mean, there's no place I'd rather be. Playing for Columbia football, it's an opportunity that is endless, and it's phenomenal. And once I had the ability to come back, it's like that's where my goals were set on finding and striving and taking every opportunity that I had to be back and to be able to lead and help this team and, get this program to reach the goals that we set for ourselves every single season.
when you're looking at, there's an expression that I remember, and I've seen it attributed to Peyton Manning, but I'm sure it's every college coach and maybe even high school Pop Warner coach has said, essentially, if you're not getting better every day, you're kind of getting worse. All right. So we look at this Columbia defense that we talked about, nationally ranked defense last year, just really strong in so many categories. So coming back to it, Justin, what do you say to your teammates? How do you make sure that you guys are as good as you were last year, going to hopefully get better this year?
I mean, yeah, that starts up top with Coach Stovall. He's the best coordinator in the country, and it's about our culture. Like Coach Poppy said, it's conviction. Every day we're striving to have consistent execution from the 11 guys on the field, and we've seen and been a part of defenses that have been nationally ranked and have been, and had success. And for us, it's just every day showing, iron sharpens iron. It's just competing every day and driving and just having each other and pushing each other and knowing what it takes. And for us, it's our foundation and our culture. It's set by Coach Stovall, and it's brought out by every position coach that we have. And we know what we need to do to achieve the goals that we set out for ourselves.
Mark, how about you from the offensive perspective? All right. We talked about how the season went on, some big wins, clearly, getting past some significant injuries. So looking at coming into this season, what do you see as the strengths of this offensive team?
I mean, I got to agree with Coach Poppy. I got to think the big boys up front are going to carry us. What
a surprise that you, as one of the big boys, says, I think it's the big boys. Well,
exactly,
big boy football that's going to carry us here, right?
Yeah, and even with Joey and Bryson leaving, two great players with us, I think a lot of guys are ready to step up. And we had basically our whole offense here this summer, getting work in, running plays and stuff like that. And we have another year now under our belt running this offense. So I think a lot of great things ahead of us. We left a lot on the field. Definitely weren't happy with a lot of our performances. Even though we improved so much year over year, I think we got a lot of good progress for sure.
Let me ask you, Mark, to give me a scouting report on Justin's defense. All right. Now you guys, literally and figuratively are banging every single day, 7-on-7s, full team drills. If you were putting together a scouting report for Columbia's defense coming into this season, what would you be highlighting?
First thing is you got to know that Coach Stovall is the best defensive coordinator in the country. So he's going to scheme up some crazy stuff. He's going to be prepared. He's going to know what the offense is going to run before we even call the play in. And then, starting with the D-line, those guys are hungry. They're a bunch of bullies for sure. They're mean, they're ready to go. Our linebackers are in the same boat. Big guys like coming downhill. They like hitting people. And our DBs, they're young, but they're definitely hungry, and they're ready to work.
Yeah. If I ask then Justin, you do the same thing? Give me a scouting report on these guys.
Yeah. I mean, like we said before, our strength is up front, and I feel every day in practice like we're going against the best O-line that we're going to face all year long. Mm-hmm. So it's just every day it's going to be a physical battle, and that's what we need. That's what's going to build this team and take us to where we need to go. So offensively, like if you're going against our offense, it's going to be physical, and that up front they're going to get after you. And then beyond that, like we have multiple quarterbacks who have came back and started games for us, and skill-wise, multiple running backs and receivers who have all played significant snaps. So it's just going to start up front and going on from there. It's going to be a physical game.
Yeah. Coach, let me come back to you. And I want to ask you two quick questions. One of the things that I think is oftentimes a problem, I think, in the past for Ivy League teams. I don't see it now. And that is the ability to have not just depth, but quality depth. A guy who can step up and you're not missing a beat or not much of a beat. Or are you there now where you wanted to be in Cornell in terms of quality depth of Columbia? I'm sorry.
Yeah, I mean, I love the people we have in the program right now. And whatever that means, right? The biggest thing that we as coaches, right, is resiliency in this thing. There's chaos in football, no matter what you do, right? There's 11 people trying to move in different directions. right? Trying to win. And so whether it's, player A or player B, the object is to play great football. And that's our job as coaches, to make sure we're not putting guys in positions they can't be successful and help the team win. And that might sound cliche, but Dick Vermeil said it best, right? Trent Green gets hurt, Kurt Warner comes in, we're going to play great football behind Kurt Warner. And that's what I believe here. And it's something that's stuck with me forever, that we trust the young men we have in our program to be ready when their number's called, right? It's never promised, but it's going to happen at some point. Someone's going to go down, and we're anticipating that next guy up to play as good as the next guy, right? As the guy, as starter, so to speak, right? How's Caleb Sanchez help us win the last 2 games and share an Ivy League title, right? Has Cole Freeman come in as a transfer who doesn't have the same opportunity with spring and winter to build a team and beat Yale, right? Lead a team victory versus Yale. Obviously, the defense had a great game and other things occurred in that game, but still the quarterback is the premier position. We had 3 different ones win games, lead victory. So I think for us, that resiliency thing is something we wear on our sleeve every single day.
Last question for you, Coach. You mentioned this before, and I always find this really interesting. You mentioned the fact that there was no turnover in your coaching staff. Why do you think that's so important to success?
It's the same messaging, right? Across the board. We don't have to train a guy on what we're about, what we're trying to build, how we're trying to do things. Although you love the influx of new ideas, right? We love that our staff can go travel and meet with different people, right? You talk to Coach Seitz, who was the first year he's ever called plays. He's got a great extensive background in his coaching portfolio that he can reach out to, starting with Kevin Stefanski at the Browns, and get new trends. And that's what I love about our staff and how young we are, is that we're not set in our ways. We're not pigeonholed to say we believe in this one thing wholeheartedly, and this is what we're going to do because it's what I'm confident in coaching. We're going to continue to grow on offense, defense, and special teams to make sure we're evolving with the game, and again, evolving with the team that we have in our program.
Well, once again, I want to congratulate you on what was just a fantastic season last year, proving what I know, Coach. When you and I had this conversation before the season started last year, I could tell how confident you were, and it played out. And as I said, it was great for Columbia. It was great for the Ivy League. It was a great college football story to see what talent and devotion can create on a football team. So congratulations once again on sharing that title. We'll look forward. We'll have you guys on ESPN again this year. So we'll look forward to spending some time with you and seeing how it all plays out. So Mark, Justin, good luck to both of you. Stay healthy. All right, get through the season. Coach, always a pleasure to chat with you. And again, congratulations last year. I should mention, one of a very select handful of coaches in the history of this storied league to have won or shared a title in their first year, and well-deserved for you. So congratulations. Good luck, guys, moving forward. We'll look forward to seeing you down the road. All right, you all be well.
Jack, appreciate you likewise.
Thank you. Next up, we're going to wrap up our conversations with the folks from Brown. Head coach James Perry is going to be joining us. Quarterback James Murphy, defensive lineman Owen Clark. So we're just going to get those guys all set. Coach Perry signing on here. And we should be getting the other guys. James Murphy now joining us also. And we've got Owen too. So everybody, you can pop your screens on so we can see you. So James, Owen, welcome to both of you. Coach Perry, it's always a pleasure to see you. Good seeing you all. Welcome all, and thanks for joining us today.
Thanks, Jack. Pumped to be here. It's been fun to watch you, so appreciate your time and some pretty special kids joining us today.
Yeah, they are. This is one of these things where I say every year that one of the joys I have in calling these Ivy football games, having played in the Ivy League, is that you come across these spectacular young men who are exceptional football players, but maybe even more important, exceptional people. And it always sort of reinforces the notion, and I'm terribly biased by it, but there's no greater football in its broadest sense than what's played in the Ivy League. So guys, again, welcome, and glad to have you with you. Coach, let me start off with you, as we've done in the past, and ask you to give us a sort of a state of the program coming into the 2025 season. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, this is the best time of year. I can promise you that. This is just my favorite day. Will be next Thursday. I'm kind of counting the minutes down. We got 2 terrific kids here. We got James and Owen, and great examples of guys who are terrific leaders, work their butts off. And here at Brown, we talked a lot about over the last few years playing fast and having fun playing football. And I think we've done a terrific job building that foundation. And I think these guys have taken, honestly, with some hunger. I didn't think we finished the season well last year. And whether it's James or Owen, we've looked at it as kind of like a 2025, we got to shock the system a little bit. And they took that to heart. So last winter, these guys really, I thought it was our best winter. Last spring, the kids really embraced the challenge of doing things a little differently while still trying to play fast and do things the way that we've always done them. And then this summer, they're doing it again. So yeah, next Thursday will be my favorite day of the year. I get to see them all, get my hands around them. But yeah, pretty special stuff here happening here at Brown.
Not only do you in fact play fast, and not only does it stress the other team's defenses, but it stresses us up in the booth. Trying to get my replays in when you guys are lining up to snap the ball again. But it's always fun to watch. So, Coach, give me a sense. You gave me sort of an overall sense. Let's focus on each side of the ball. Let's start with the offense, right? Give me your thoughts coming into this season of what you expect to be the strengths of this offense, and then what do you think you're going to need to focus on a little bit more to get them where you think they can be?
Yeah, well, I think first of all, offensively, we want to play a lot of players. So you mentioned the tempo with which we play. Well, that allows us to have more plays. So depth has been something that we've been trying to build and cultivate. Some of that depth is cultivated in the weight room, right? Just making sure young guys are ready to play. And some of it's through recruitment. And then a lot of it is just older guys who are kind of seizing their opportunity. So for us, that means at the quarterback position, we're joined with James. We also have a deep room there. That would be great competition. At wideout, Mark Mahoney's a hell of a player. And when he graduates, you say, where are you going to get that, replacement from? And instead of looking at like a 1-for-1, for us, it's like, how do we get to the point where we have 6 wideouts? And we play them all. Up front, no different. Jack Connolly's a hell of a player. We just graduated him. Well, we don't want to go 1-for-1 there. We want to be the deepest line that we've had. So when you think about what playing fast means, often it means just playing more players if you're doing it right. And I think we've taken the steps to do that. And offensively, we certainly have a lot of guys chewing at the bit to get out there and do that way.
What about from the defensive side of the ball? What do you see strengths coming in, and what do you think you need to get better at?
Yeah, so Owen is spearheading a position that you need to play a lot of players at. And that I'm really, really proud of how we've built that there. So, you need the leaders and terrific ball players like he is, but you also got to go 9, 10, 11 deep, who knows? And we're finally at that point, right? Through recruitment and player development, I think we're really strong and deep defensive line there. And then, you can kind of project that across all 3 groupings. But in the secondary, a guy like Elias Archie, but I think that everyone in the league knows right now, hell of a player, terrific talent and all that. But I think part of what he's taken as a senior is making sure the younger guys know we're not going to play 4 secondary men for every play. That's not how Brown does it, right? Like, we want to be able to put a lot of defensive backs on the field. So good example there. And then, James is a captain, and then John Purdue is a captain. He's our middle linebacker. So the more guys we have ready to play, the better Brown football will be. And when you look at the Ivy League season, it's really a sprint, right? Like we had a meeting this morning at 9:30 with head coaches about going to the Ivy League champion, going to the playoffs. Unique to the Ivy League, having worked at Delaware and then the head coach at Bryant. 10 weeks, no bye. You blink and it's over. These schools are going to have 12 weeks with a bye. So that's obviously a much longer duration of time. So depth of your roster, seriousness with which you take your training and preparation, like these 2 guys did, is really the differentiator, right? So 2025, we'll see where we're at when it comes to that stuff, and I'm pretty excited about it.
Remember when you and I first spoke, when you first took the job a few years ago, and one of the things you talked about was that need to build not just depth, well, maybe depth to start with, but then ultimately quality depth. And historically, I think you could look back and some of the things that people would say about the Ivy League, really good first line players, but maybe didn't have quite the depth that you might find in some other leagues. Are you confident that you're getting where you want to be? I don't think head coaches will ever say, I'm where I want to be. You always want to be better. But are you confident that you're getting close to where you want to be in terms of building that quality depth for Brown?
And that's really well put. So step one in building a program is making sure that you are recruiting depth and you have terrific players. Brown's the best school in the country, right? Like we want to only bring great people to this school. And we've done that. But step two, you want to win a championship, you need all league players.
Yeah.
And they need to train like all league players. They need to approach life. They need to, sometimes get close to being an all league player and then break through. So that's part of, to me, shocking the system. I think we've been so competitive now the last couple of years. To break through, we'll need individual players to break through too. So they've taken that seriously, the training that's required to do that. We got 2 guys who are training to try to do that themselves here joining us today. So yeah, that needs to permeate the program. And when it does, heck, you rewind the clock, some great teams we've had here. You also have you have good depth, and then you have the difference makers, the Ivy League Players of the Year type guys.
Yeah. Let me bring Owen and James in the conversation then. And James, I'm going to start with you. All right. So you may well be inheriting a position that has been a heralded one throughout the course of Ivy League recent history. There's some people who used to, probably still do, can refer to Brown as QBU in this league, starting with your coach. So that comes with that some significant expectations, and with expectations come pressures. Right? So talk a little bit about, Jake Wilcox was there for a long time and did some great things there. Talk a little bit about being the next guy up.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, like you said, there's been a great lineage of quarterbacks here at Brown, starting with Coach Perry. And before my time, quarterbacks like EJ. And then fortunately, I was able to play with Jake. And those are all guys who kind of emulate what a Brown football quarterback and a Brown football player is. And that's a tough, resilient, hardworking leader that kind of takes control of this team and brings it to new heights. So I was fortunate enough to learn from Jake, very fortunate to learn from Coach Perry every day. So it's just it's a position that comes with a lot of responsibilities, but if you put in the work and you do the right things, there's a lot of success to be had.
You'll often hear coaches talk about developing that chemistry between the quarterbacks and the receivers, and indeed the rest of the offense team, but certainly especially receivers. And again, Brown, a history of some great receivers over the last decade or so. How about the opportunity you've had to try to develop? Again, camp hasn't started, but in spring, in the summertime, how do you go about then developing that chemistry with your receivers?
I think it just starts with repetition, getting out there every day, being around the guys, and having great leadership in that room and across the offense. I think we're fortunate enough where we have guys that hold themselves accountable and really put in the work to develop. And I think kind of that just stems throughout the entire offense, starts at the top with the seniors, and then the incoming freshmen, they pick up on that. And the chemistry builds itself once you put in the repetitions and you're out there long enough.
No. Well, let's talk a little bit about your defense. All right. Coach gave us a little bit of an overview, but let me get your perspective from the guy who's literally on the ground with these guys. What do you anticipate coming into the season of the strengths that you'll see from this defense? And then the second question I'll ask you is coming off of last year, what do you think you all need to get better at? So let's start with the strengths.
Yeah, I mean, there are some really good players coming back. Like Coach mentioned, Elias is a great DB. John Purdue is a great linebacker. And, with Coach Mulrooney coming in, there's a fire and an energy. It was reflected all spring in practice. Guys are just flying around. They're chomping at the bit to get to the ball. Whistle to whistle. It's 100%. It's competitive. It's violent. There's effort, physicality. So I think that's really going to be our strength. Is there's no taking a play off. There's no the ball's running the other way. I'm going to jog to the ball. No, we're sprinting to the ball. We're going to be violent, and that's really going to be our strength. I think, to improve, I think it's just going to be, staying consistent. We'd have great drives last year, and then we'd have drives where, a team would pop off a huge play, and giving up those big plays, it kills games. So I think staying consistent every play, all 4 quarters, is something we've emphasized and prioritized all offseason. I think it's something that we have worked on, we'll continue to build on, and we'll see this season. It'll be different.
Oh, and let me ask you to give your scouting report on the offense. All right. So if you were putting together a scouting report here on, you're up against these guys every single day. But if you had to put a scouting report together about what Brown's offense is going to look like this season, what would you be highlighting?
I mean, yeah, they're fast. They fly up and down the field. There's no break. And, I'm up front. I'm on the facing that O-line every day. That's a gritty group, and they're going to fight to get their job done every play. Coach Morris, he's done a really good job with them, and he's brought an attitude that is definitely reflected in their play every snap. So that O-line is going to be aggressive, and then obviously with Matt and Murph and a deep receiver room, they have the talent to really get the job done.
James, same question to you. Scouting report for Owen's defense. What would you highlight?
Yeah, I just think it's the way they fly around every play, and that was really brought out in the spring. It's something that I hadn't seen before from this defense. They just Coach Maroney emphasized it to the whistle and through the whistle. You go to the ball and you attack. So that was a great thing to see, guys flying around, a lot of athleticism on the field. And, we got a lot of smart leaders too, guys that are pulling others along with them and making the right decisions out there, which will ultimately lead to a very successful defense.
Let me open this up to some of our media folks and friends here joining us. Scott Cordischi is joining us from ESPN. Scott, welcome.
Jack, thank you, and thank you for doing this. Question for the players. Owen, I'll start with you. I guess you addressed it already a little, but if you could expand on it. Talk about the addition of some of the new coaches on your side of the football, in particular Coach Mulrooney. That seemed to be, the vibe during spring practice, right? People were excited. He's kind of an energetic guy that coaches an aggressive defense.
Yeah, no, exactly. He he came in, he took the time to, get to know each player on the defense individually. We all had one-on-one meetings. He got to introduce himself, but more, there's a fire he has that it can't be faked. It's a passion for the game. He's in the office, damn near 24/7. It's nonstop. And that's reflected in his coaching. And then that's, trickled down to the whole defense, whether it's in the weight room, the film room, there's a aggression. We've been talking all summer. We're lifting violent. There's no just going through the motions in the weight room, or we're lifting with an intensity and a violence that has really come from Coach Mulrooney. So we're excited. We're really excited and anxious, ready for the season. We've trained all off season. The past week's been tough. We're ready to go.
And James, question for you. I know Coach mentioned losing a guy like Mahoney, such a talented target. Can you talk to us about maybe your top targets in terms of wide receivers, tight ends, and then how much does a guy like Childs, the Ivy League Rookie of the Year, factor into the passing game for you as well?
Yeah, I think like Coach Perry said, we built a lot of depth in the room, but that room is highlighted by guys like Ty Pezza and Naj Rahman, two guys that have worked tirelessly this offseason, have brought guys along with them. And then, you got other guys like Solomon Miller, Levi Linnos in the tight end room. And kind of the offense, there's obviously a big spotlight on Matt, the Rookie of the Year. He had a terrific freshman year, but, I can only tell you that didn't get to his head. He's been very hungry this offseason, been here almost every day, and is really ready to work and prove people wrong and kind of show that last year was not a fluke and that he is one of the best players in this league.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you, Scott. I don't think we have any other media questions. Coach, let me wrap it up with one last question for you. You mentioned that you had a coaches meeting. You talked about that announcement that was so welcomed by anybody with regard to Ivy League football that this year our Ivy Championship will have the opportunity to play for a national championship. And from your perspective as a head coach and this Brown team, do you talk about that? Is that something that'll be out there at all in terms of your preparations and what you do in a day-to-day way?
Well, I think it has to be, only because maybe I've been in the league so long. I shouldn't have been surprised, but I was surprised while we as coaches were fighting for the postseason play, how enthralled the team was. It was like instant, the communication amongst teammates, the communication back at me as the coach, heck, my teammates from way back in the 90s, how excited everybody was. So I think you have to address it because, when you coach in a league, starting in 2001 and you're playing in the late 90s, I did not realize the reception would be so strong. And so, yeah, the primary goal is to win the league like it has been for 30 years that I've been around Brown football. But knowing that going to the tournament will be a special thing. This is the 100th year of Brown Stadium. And we talk about having simultaneously the ability to be the very first team to go to the national tournament. I mean, there's not a lot of times you get to say you did the first thing in Ivy League history, right? So really, really remarkable. And yeah, we will definitely talk about it. I think these kids talk about it amongst themselves. Part of shocking the system is being able to be that first. So yeah, man, it's exciting time. There's a lot of things that go with every season, but 2025 will be a good one.
That's a great way to look at it, to be the first. I said regularly that we regularly have Ivy championship teams that could do damage in these national championship tournaments and could run all the way to win this thing. And I have no doubt that with the talent we have in the league this year, that will certainly be the case again. But this time they'll actually have that chance to do it. So it'll be great to look forward to. Owen and James, thanks so much, guys, for spending some time with us. Coach, always a pleasure to talk with you. We'll look forward to get Brown on one of our ESPN games. So we'll look forward to seeing you all down the road. So good luck in the future. I mentioned that Brown opens up against Georgetown on Saturday, September 20th at 12 p.m. So guys, everybody, players, stay well. Coach, good luck to you. As always, we'll look forward to seeing you all down the road. Take care now.
Appreciate it, Jack. Take care.
You will. So as we wrap up here after our conversation with Brown folks, a couple of notes. Once again, a reminder, the full program is available on YouTube. And if you'd like your own copy, what you can do is email JJ Klein, who's the League Football Communications contact. I should say the exceptional League Football Communications contact at jj@ivyleague.com. I want to thank JJ for putting this together, gathering all of our coaches and players and our media members for exchanging our conversation here. And certainly thanks to all the coaches and the student athletes who've been able to join us. Everybody looked forward to what for so many reasons, including now that shot at a national championship, should be yet another exceptional Ivy football season. So thanks to all of you. Good luck this season. We'll look forward to seeing you all down the road.